Hello everyone. Welcome to the What If Anime YouTube channel. Today, we're diving into an exciting new story that will take your imagination to the next level. Let's get started. What if Naruto finds a weapon in the Forest of Death Part 1? Naruto. Gritting his teeth, Naruto pushed one last rock in front of his shelter, leaving a slit just large enough for him to peek out of. Man, I got lucky. Naruto grinned widely as he looked about the hollowed-out cave-like shelter he'd come across, having only had to block up the entrance to keep safe while he was inside. I wonder why I never heard of this test before though. Naruto frowned as he started poking about the stuff that was left in the shelter to distract from his thoughts of what had happened earlier in the day. His second attempt to pass the academy test, his second failure. When they let Lee pass and he couldn't even do any jutsu. And he was bad at taijutsu. Naruto could at least do the henge and substitutions perfectly and was the best at stealth. But no, apparently some jonin who looked like Lee had requested Naruto's classmate pass and be put on their team. At least Mizuka's sensei had been on his side though. The instructor had told him about a secret extra test that could be done for those who failed the regular one. Spend a week in training ground 44 without needed to be collected, and he'd earn his headband. Poking about the cave, he found supplies left behind by other people who'd been here before. He found kunai scrolls, some rations that smelled like they went bad, and a bow of all things. Never seen a ninja use one of these. Naruto frowned as he picked up the ranged weapon, working to draw it back and finding it shockingly hard to do so. What the? Naruto blinked, working again as he found while he could draw the string all the way back it wasn't easy and his arm was shaking. Man, it must be hard to use one of these things. Naruto frowned before his face split into a wide grin. I bet those others who passed can't do it. Determined to figure out this weapon if for no other reason than to show up the classmates who'd passed where he failed, Naruto settled in to train with that bow in his tiny shelter. You called for me, Hokage-sama? Sim appeared before the village leader, her canine companion at her side. Naruto has gone missing. The Hokage puffed on his pipe, using the herbs within to ease any stress he was currently under. Nobody has seen him since he left the academy after failing his test. I spoke to his senseis and they're unsure of where he went. I thought he was out to sulk, but nobody has seen him at all in this time. Not even those at the ramen stand he practically lives at. And you want me to track the kid down? Sim nodded. Easy enough even if it would be boring. Finding a wayward kid hiding in the village sounded like genin work, but she knew how important a Jinchuriki was. Exactly. Sarutobi nodded. You have your orders. Now go. In a blur, she and Kuramaru vanished from the Hokage tower, hurrying to the academy to pick up the kid's trail. I smell him. Kuramaru winced. Kid smells like ramen and salt. Lots and lots of ramen. She nodded, still exasperated by how some of her clan expected the kid to smell like a fox. He had a mass of chakra shaped like a nine-tailed fox trapped in a seal on his body. That didn't make the brat the fox or even a fox. Follow it. Let's get this done quickly. She nodded to Kuramaru, the wolf-like canine taking off as she followed behind. As the Nikan moved further and further from the village proper, a pit of worry started to settle in her gut. The Forest of Death. Kuramaru growled out. He went straight for the Forest of Death along with one of the senseis from the academy, although they never entered the tree line. The same ones who said they had no idea where he went. She scowled. The Hokage wasn't going to like this. Readying her claws, she picked up the pace. Kuramaru following the still relatively fresh scent trail as they entered the forest, which showed no real physical trail markers. Although she supposed she shouldn't be surprised. If the kid could regularly evade Umbu, he knew how to not leave a trail. Damn it! Hearing the cursing of her target, she shared a glance with Kuramaru as they landed on a tree branch. Of all the things she expected when finding out the kid was in the Forest of Death, training in a clearing with a bow of all things was not one of them. The kid had a handful of arrows that had been fired at a target with very few managing to hit. Why is this thing so hard to draw? Naruto grunted as he drew the string back, the arm holding the bow shaking from the strength requirement. Because that bow isn't designed for beginners, kid. She spoke up as the blonde brat fell on his ass, having not heard her approach. Gah! Naruto panted, hand on his chest before looking at her wide-eyed. No. I didn't need to get pulled out yet. It's only been a day. I can't fail, please. What the hell are you jabbering about, kid? Sim dropped to the ground lightly. And why the hell are you even in here? This place is off limits to people who aren't shinobi. And anyone below Chunin needs permission from their Jonin sensei or the Hokage to come inside. But Mizuka sensei. Naruto wilted under her words, seemingly quick to trust her. Although from what she'd seen and heard around the village the fact that she wasn't glaring at him might be a part of that. What did your sensei say, kid? She asked gently, treating the blonde boy like an abused puppy. Something she supposed wasn't too far off the mark. He said that if I could stay in the forest for a week without needing to be collected then I'd still pass. Naruto was almost pleading with her for it to be true with his tone, that it was a special extra test. Kid, there is no special test to pass the academy. Sim felt bad having to crush his hope, and this place is dangerous. We call it the Forest of Death for a reason. You're lucky the Hokage was quick to have me track you down before the bears or giant centipedes found you. IGG sent you? He sniffled. The kid was small for his age, probably malnourished if he was this tiny for a teenager. That compared with his pitiful expression made him look like a small child, one that needed to be protected. Yeah, kid. She crouched down and gave him a comforting grin, but it ain't all bad. I'm sure the Hokage will make sure that Mizuki asshole gets what's coming to him for trying this. And even if you have to go back to the academy for another year, you'll be in my son's class next year. Kiba's a bit of an idiot, but he's a good kid. He might need someone who's been around the block there to help make sure he actually studies. She added the last part conspiratorially as Naruto gave a small laugh. Taking that as a good sign, she got up, pulling the kid back to his feet. Come on, let's get you back to the Kage Tower. She urged him onward, Kuramaru following behind to be ready in case any of the residents of the forest tried getting uppity. What did you mean about this bow not being meant for beginners? Naruto asked once they were out of the forest, the kid having picked up on how on edge she and Kuramaru were about being in there. Kid, bows take a lot of upper arm strength to use. She poked the kid's still rather thin arm better the bow for how far and fast the arrow goes. The more strength needed, not to mention you have to keep it steady. Most bows for training would start weaker so you could build up your arm strength first. I'll get it down. Naruto grumbled, the kid clearly stubborn as an Inazaka, good attitude brat. She grinned, enjoying his protesting squawks as she ruffled his hair. Quitters never make it in this line of work. Maybe you could do that Uzumaki seal stuff to make a training tool. Seals? Naruto frowned confused. The academy not mention your clan was good at those? She looked surprised, figuring that would come up in any history lesson about Yuzu. I have a clan? Naruto gaped at her as even Kuramaru paused to process the fact that the kid hadn't known. The Hokage is gonna kill someone. Sarutobi. Welcome back. Sarutobi let out a sigh of relief as the feral-looking woman returned with Naruto and Kuramaru. Hokage-sama, I found him, but I also found out some things you aren't going to like. Some scowled. Apparently one of his senseis, Mizuku, said if he lasted a week in the forest of death without needed help then he'd pass the genin exam. Added to that, the kid apparently knows nothing about the Uzumaki clan. Why are you surprised, Naruto? Surely you remember them? Talking about the Uzumaki, Senju, and Uchiha should have been one of the first lessons the academy gave since those three families were the founders of this village. Sarutobi took a deep steadying breath, deciding to focus on the easier topic for now, even as his mind was a whirl of ideas on what to do with Mizuki. The academy said only the Senju and Uchiha founded the village Jiji. Naruto shook his head, expression still somewhat vacant as the boy worked to process this revelation that had been dropped. Naruto, why don't you tell me exactly what all your instructors are teaching you? Sarutobi demanded and had to forcibly rein in his anger so as not to accidentally blast the boy with his killing intent as he learned just how badly they were sabotaging someone they should have treated as a hero. Naruto, it seems your instructors are failing in their duty to properly teach you beyond just Mizuki's stunt. Walking over to his bookshelf, he began going through it before finding 3 items he was looking for. I can't tell you who your parents were. They had too many enemies and left instructions for you to only be told when you were ready. That being said, I will be helping you catch up to speed on what the academy failed to teach you and what your clan focused on. But what if they just kick me out of classes again when I go back? Naruto kicked the floor with a scowl. Trust me, Naruto. Sarutobi's smile was vicious as he brought out the various books he wanted. They'll know better once I'm through with them. Sakura, first. Sakura crowed smugly at her rival Ino, who had clearly entered the door behind her. Looks like that big-ass forehead is blinding you cause I was first. Ino growled out, the blonde glaring at Sakura as they had their usual argument over who got to sit next to Sasuke. Liar! Sakura butt foreheads with Ino. Skank! Ino growled back, you're both in the way. The voice of her love and future husband Sasuke made Sakura leap back, giving her most winning smile. I'm so sorry Ino was in your way, Sasuke-kun. Sakura bat her eyelashes at her future man-to-be. Oh, fuck her forehead. Ino rolled her eyes as Sakura felt her own twitch in irritation. He was clearly annoyed at you. You're both. Sasuke brushed past them before pausing and frowning. Who the hell is he? Turning, she saw someone who wasn't in their class before. They were up in the open space at the top of the room for students to do some physical training and exercise before class if they were early. Unfortunately, she still knew who the idiot was. Ugh, that's just Naruto. Sakura rolled his eyes. He's useless and has already failed the academy twice. My parents said he's also a menace and has a criminal record. To avoid him. If he had a record he wouldn't be at the academy. Ino scoffed before frowning. My dad said to avoid him as well, but that was mainly given how a lot of other people in the village seemed to hate him. I'm pretty sure I've seen him running away from Umbu after pranks before. While Rito. The brash and eager voice of Kiba sounded from behind her as the Inazaka air brushed past her and rushed up to the blonde who Sakura was just noticing had changed his hairstyle. It was no longer a shaggy mess but somewhat taken care of, shaved short on the sides while slightly longer on top and in the back. Sup, Kiba? Naruto grinned, putting down the bow he'd been drawing and letting slack repeatedly. Mom wants to know if you're swinging by for dinner tonight. Kiba leaned against the wall by the blonde, Akamaru's tail wagging away. Dog breath. Sasuke's tone demanded attention as he approached. You know this guy? Yeah, team. Kiba, as usual, refused to show Sasuke the respect he deserved. He's Naruto. I guess you'll find out in a couple minutes, so saying and no won't matter, but most of our old senseis are gone now. Turns out a lot of them were sabotaging things here, which the Hokage found out after they overreached while screwing with Naruto last year, but I'll pass this time. Naruto nodded, drawing the bow again to his cheek, Sakura noticing his arms straining slightly from the action. Fei, weak. Sasuke sneered, noticing the strain too. Better than you can do, ducky. Naruto smirked at Sasuke, eyes flitting to her future husband's hair. You insolent little dash. Sasuke glared, snatching the bow and trying to draw it, barely able to pull the string back. The hell is this? It's a training bow. Naruto takes it back, showing something carved onto it, resistance seals that let me make it harder and harder to draw as I get used to the old pull. Helps improve my arm strength. Hearing the warning bell, Sakura rushed to a seat, Ino taking the one behind her as they both tried to coax Sasuke to sit next to them. Sasuke sat in the corner by himself, Sim, standing outside the academy. Sim let out a grin when she smelt her brats approaching. About time you lad showed up. She quipped, why, that bell rang a whole minute ago. What can I say? Traffic was terrible. Naruto gave her an impish grin, sharing a fist bump with Kiba, the two having become thick as thieves since she found them in the forest and began to have Naruto come over regularly. I see. Sim shook her head ruefully before leaning down to give Akamaru a scritch behind the ear. And were you looking after these two for me today, Akamaru? The puppy yipped eagerly. I'm glad to hear it. Straightening up, and blasting killing intent as the various parents picking up kids who were glaring at her brats, Sim gave a gesture. Come on brats, it's roast boar tonight. Sim nodded as they set off back to the house where Hana should be back by now. Yees. Kiba looked pumped to get his favorite dish while Naruto just knew he needed the meat and vegetables. His protest had, thankfully, died when he started growing thanks to proper diet. So, how was your first day back? Sim asked as they continued on to the Inazaka compound, wanting to make sure the remaining old teachers as well as the new ones hadn't tried the same shit the removed ones had. Boring. Kiba groaned, it's just going over all the stuff they left out from the lectures before. I'm pretty sure the Hokage was hiding there somewhere though. Whenever it looked like a teacher might be about to leave something out, they suddenly got pale, started sweating, and rapidly changed course. Tomorrow we're going to be taking a review quiz over what they said today and then going outside to test physical skill. Naruto added, Kiba perking up at the thought of that. Her boy always more brawn than brain. It was funny seeing Sasuke-teen get pissed off when he couldn't use your training bow. Kiba snickered towards Naruto, said tool strapped on the blonde's back. Oh? Sim looked intrigued by that, curious at how Naruto's strength had improved since she found him. Yeah, I've been noticing lately that I heal really fast. Naruto frowned, expression vacant as he tried to puzzle out the reason why. It's really helpful for training, but I have no clue why it happens. Dude, don't look a gift wolf in the mouth. Kiba chided his friend. Just be glad you got to show up, that self-centered prick, and be happy. Let me see it. Sim gestured and for the bow and, upon being passed the weapon, easily drew the string. She was a jonin and had the strength to match that title. But the bow still took more effort than she expected. She was sure there were even some full genin at this point who would be unable to draw it back. Good progress. She nodded, passing the weapon back. But how's your aim coming? I've consistently hitting the targets now. Naruto nodded proudly. And I'm usually able to make at least 1 or 2 bullseyes per 10 shots now. How about a little training incentive, boys? Sim grinned, ruffling the duo's hair as they passed the compound gate. Kiba, if you get AC or higher on 3 tests or quizzes in a row, you pass. Naruto, if you can get up to 5 bullseyes out of every 10 3 times in a row, then you pass. Once each of you passes, I'll take you to a shop I know to give you both a piece of proper shinobi gear. Whether that's a melee weapon, a tool, or some armor. At her promise, she saw the blaze of determination in their eyes, the two boys always eager to compete even if it was against themselves or a challenge set before them. You're on! The duo shouted out in unison. That's what I like to hear. Sim laughed happily as they got to the house. Now let's get inside and eat before Hana takes it all for herself. I heard that. Her daughter's voice carried out from the kitchen. I don't hear a denial. Sim smirked as they moved to the kitchen to eat together once again. Sarutobi, head held high, an expression neutral. Sarutobi stepped into the office for the head of the torture and interrogation department. The moment he stepped inside, Anko, Inoichi, and Ibiki snapped to attention. Report. Sarutobi commanded as he entered, gazing at the notes from the interrogations of those sabotaging his potential genin. It's bad, sir. Ibiki scowled darkly. The academy head was in on this and helped push through any changes he wanted with the help of the civilian council backing him. They removed any mention of the Uzumaki, moved focus to theory over practical, put more and more emphasis on clans they approved of in the histories, and lowered the kunoichi-only classes to flower crown making and tea parties. Then there's what they did to the Uzumaki kid directly. Taijutsu? Taught incorrectly. Kunai and shuriken throwing? Taught incorrectly and poor quality items provided. They taught him the henge wrong, but from what I hear he figured that one out on his own. A substitute was there when they first went over the substitution, which is why he has that. For clones they were aware that he had too much chakra to do the basic bunshin, not to mention they were refusing to teach him proper chakra control. There's a habit of marking correct answers wrong on written tests, punishing him when others act out and more. What's worse is we don't know if they did it to anyone else. We were only able to get this out of them as we knew they were sabotaging the Uzumaki kid already. It'll take years to figure out how far back the sabotage goes and start fixing things. Damn. Sarutobi ran a tired hand down his face. I'll put out word to the various clans to subtly check on their members who graduated in recent years and have some of the trustworthy Chunin offer tutoring to genin and academy students. I don't want word to spread to the other villages of this situation. Understood, Hokage-sama. The three saluted him in one. And you're sure the ones left are clean? Sarutobi gave a serious look to the trio. Some of those there still hate Naruto. Inoichi admitted reluctantly they never took part of any direct sabotage, and only taught what the academy had ordered them to. Still, I wouldn't put it past them to try something if they get desperate enough. Noted. Carry on. Do it. Kiba whispered to Naruto eagerly under his breath as the trio entered the shinobi-focused shop. It had taken a few months for the two to both complete her requirements, but they'd accomplished it, and now she was owning up to her part of the deal. I know. Naruto was just as giddy, the two taking off to look at what the store had on offer while she stood by the door, watching her idiots in fond amusement. Sup, Higurashi? Sim grinned to the store owner behind the counter. Hello, Sim. The tired-looking retired Chunin nodded. The brat's yours? Damn straight they're mine. Sim grinned wider at that, flashing her canine teeth at the man. I promised the kids if they hit a threshold in their training, then I'd get them some proper gear. That won't be a problem, right? The last part was said with just a hint of a growl to make it clear how displeased she'd be if he caused trouble for her blonde dumbass. Relax, I know the difference between scroll and kunai. Higurashi waved off her threat, using the expression that those in the know about the Kyuubi had taken to stating they didn't blame Naruto for it. Any idea what they want? Honestly, not a clue. Sim laughed. I'm eager to see what my idiots will pick though. Well, Uzumaki seems to be gravitating towards the swords. Higurashi snorted amused. Not a real surprise there, is it? Not really, no. Sim smiled and found amusement at the kid she'd all but taken in at this point. A quick glance through the area let her see, much to her own surprise, that her son wasn't looking at weapons. Instead, he was looking at defensive gear, not trying to get something to make things more deader. Sim leaned on her son's head as she approached, her grin playful as she looked at the jacket he'd been considering. I've been working on my taijutsu more, Kiba admitted, but Naruto and I were talking. He's worried about me getting hurt on a mission given I focus more on offense than anything else. She'd have to thank that boy later for helping her son think like this. The two were good influences on each other, the brothers each one needed in their lives. It feels thicker than it looks. Sim noted as she pinched the material of the long jacket, the collar lined with fur. The tag said it was lightly armor padded. Kiba nodded. I kinda hoped Naruto could add more seals to it to make it even better. Oh? She was curious at that. I saw him do those resistance seal thingies on his training bow and wondered if he could do some other seals on my coat to help training. Kiba grinned. +1s to make it more durable and defensive, and keep me from overheating if I wear it in the summer. I see you're thinking ahead. Sim's proud grin was genuine as she saw how the two boys were helping each other. Each one had the utmost confidence in the other, saw the best in the other's skills and encouraged that. If Hana wasn't so much older, she'd be tempted to try and set the girl and Naruto up together. Glancing over, she noted that Naruto had seemed to decide on a katana, one she noted didn't have any sort of seals already put onto it. She guessed he planned to do that himself. You boys ready? She grinned as Naruto and Kiba walked up to the counter, putting their choices on the counter for Higurashi to ring up. Yep. Naruto was practically grinning as she saw his hands twitching, miming writing in the air as the kid was probably already planning out what sort of seals and seal arrays to put onto these things. She couldn't wait to see the result. Sasuke, sitting in his classroom, Sasuke's eyes flit about from person to person as he waited for the one, technically two, he needed to speak with. This year at the academy had been so far from the ones before it that it almost felt like his education had been started over from the beginning instead of the continuation this final year was meant to be, and it all went back to one person. Someone he barely even knew existed before the school year started. Naruto Uzumaki. The histories he knew were wrong, the teachers he trusted were corrupt, and those he passed off as weak, as unimportant, were rapidly growing stronger. Seeing those he needed to speak to finally arrive, Sasuke grit his teeth and approached the duo of Kiba Inazaka and Naruto Uzumaki. The two had been wearing new gear in recent weeks with the blonde Uzumaki always scratching out ideas in a journal, so he knew that Uzumaki could help him. Uzumaki. Sasuke forced himself to stay polite, knowing these two weren't nearly as weak as he thought before. Not after seeing how fast they'd grown when the teachers were forced to actually teach. Need something, Ducky? The blonde tilted his head, still using that nickname he'd saddled Sasuke with day one. I wanted to ask for a weapon, he admitted, hating how weak he felt asking others for help. A sealed weapon. I need to get stronger. Not just gonna ask the teachers? Inazaka raised an eyebrow at him challengingly. The dog boy had mellowed out since Uzumaki showed up on the scene but still had pride to rival Sasuke's own. Those fools? Sasuke didn't bother to hide his derision as he scoffed. Now that I've seen how much they failed before? How they're having to be forced to actually do the responsibility they'd accepted at the academy. I wouldn't trust them to teach a toddler to tie their shoes unsupervised. Fair. Inazaka seemed pleased by that statement. I'll offer compensation. Sasuke did his best to negotiate, not used to people not just giving him what he wanted. This was too important to let his pride hinder him though. The new history lessons had made it clear just how effective Uzumaki seals were, and if his classmate was even half as skilled as the examples he'd read about, then he needed this. I can think on ideas. Uzumaki nodded, pencils spinning rapidly between his fingers as the blonde let his mind race. Yeah. I think I have something good. Something that would only be able to be used to its full potential by an Uchiha with their Sharingan. I just need to know a few things about how it functions to know if my idea is even possible. If it is, and if I make this weapon for you, then I want to be able to choose some jutsu from the Uchiha library. That was expected admittedly. The Uchiha Jutsu library was the largest in Konoha given how many abilities and techniques his clan had copied and recorded over the years. I don't have mine active yet, Sasuke admitted with a scowl. There was a chance that Uzumaki's question could be answered just from records, but also a chance it couldn't. We could always ask that scarecrow-looking motherfucker. Inazaka pipped in as Sasuke and the blonde Uzumaki looked at the dog boy in confusion. What? You two hadn't heard about him? The feral taijutsu user looked surprised. Mom mentioned him a few times. Apparently, he used to be the student of the 4th Hokage. During the last war he was on a mission and lost his eye. His teammate was injured and dying and had their third partner transplant one of his Sharingan into the half-blinded one. The guy's still active in the corp and has apparently copied over 1,000 jutsu with it. I could ask Gigi if he could arrange a test. Naruto grinned. Should only take a few minutes, so I can't see it being an issue. If this works though, then you'll have swords that'll be perfect for you. Uzumaki's grin was wild, full of energy and excitement at the chance to create. Sasuke couldn't deny he was eager to see what the blonde would be able to create. Tenten, Dad, I'm home. Tenten called out to her father as she entered the family shop. Higurashi Weapons. Hey sweetie. Her dad gave her a smile, his expression looking as eternally tired as she always saw it. How was training today? Exhausting. Tenten groaned as she flopped onto the counter. Guy-sensei is as brutal a taskmaster as ever. Even if he's only all that good at taijutsu and regular physical training. I've been having to handle all my weapon training by myself. Not to mention I've never seen that man even try to perform any ninjutsu, let alone jinjutsu. Yeah, Guy was never the best at those. Her dad gave a rueful chuckle. I could ask around if you really want to learn more about those. Try to find someone to give some training? I'm good for now, Dad. Tenten stretched, cracking her back with a content sigh. I'll just stick to what I'm doing at the moment for now. Still, I don't get why Guy-sensei seems so weird about training. He wasn't at first, but after a couple weeks he became a real slave driver. Not noticing her dad's conflicted grimace at that, Tenten ran a hand down her face. Anyway, I'm gonna go sharpen my kunai before dinner. Love you too. The tired man's voice perked up a bit at that as Tenten grinned at her dad. She was determined to make him proud. Sarutobi. Frowning, Hiruzen looked over the various test results from the academy graduation exam. Of the 21 students, 19 had passed the test to be assigned onto a genin team. The clan heirs, several civilian-born, and Naruto. Given the number, the teachers had decided to recommend that Naruto be held back and not given a team as he has shown a history of failing at shinobi arts before, and the number of teams where teamwork would be possible is limited. The civilian-born all still openly treated him like a monster due to the influence of their parents, which would cause issues if any were on his team. Then there the team requests he received from various jonin, or council members. Karina Yehi had requested Kiba Inazaka, Hinata Hyuga, and Shino Aburame for her to train as a tracker team. Kakashi had asked to teach Sasuke Uchiha as well as Naruto Uzumaki, with many on the council requesting that he train Sasuke and leave Naruto unmentored. His son had asked for a team and many on the council had put forth to have a second iteration of the Ino Shikacho trio trained. Of all those, the only one he felt was remotely feasible was Karina's, and that was just for the team composition. He was still a little hesitant to let her teach after what happened with the Kurama girl. But then again, she has been mentoring young Hinata for some time. He sighed and signed off on that team as well as 3 teams composed of civilian-born applicants. And then there were 7. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamichi, Sakura Harino, and Sai, no last name. The last one practically screamed of Danzo's influence. A young boy orphaned, and put into the academy partway through the final year but blowing through the various tests. A young man who never seemed to show any emotions unless pushed. It was rude all over again, but he didn't have any proof. Pulling over the reports, written by the teachers he'd placed at the academy personally and knew he could trust, he started to read, skipping over Naruto's as he was already aware of the boy's ability. Sasuke Uchiha. High scores across the board. Driven to the point of obsession with getting stronger. Started year with poor teamwork and social skills but has begun to spend more time with classmates who he feels would help him get stronger. Needs a sensei who can help him grow but won't kowtow to council or genin demands. Shikamaru Nara. Highest academic and tactical scores. 3rd lowest passing physical score. Shows unusually intense amount of Nara laziness. Seems to believe he can outthink any problem without having to train his body. Needs a firm-handed sensei who can help him develop proper work ethic. Yamanaka. Middling academic scores, second lowest passing physical score. Obsessed over male classmate Sasuke Uchiha, often heard arguing with other female classmates about him. Seems to think he would be able to save her if she was ever in trouble. So focusing on dieting to look pretty has taken higher priority to her overtraining. Needs a firm-handed sensei to bring out potential and correct bad habits. Choji Akamichi. Middling academic and physical scores. Prone to complaining if he's made to put down his food and focus on training. Seems to believe he doesn't have to try too hard so long as he has strategies of one Shikamaru Nara. Needs a sensei who can motivate him and improve low self-esteem while fixing poor work ethic. Sakura Haruno. High theory and academic scores. Lowest of the physical ability passing scores. Obsessed over male classmate Sasuke Uchiha, often heard arguing with other female classmates about him. Seems to think he would be able to save her if she was ever in trouble. So focusing on dieting to look pretty has taken higher priority to her overtraining. Excellent chakra control but very small reserves. Needs a firm-handed sensei to bring out potential and correct bad habits. Sai. Perfect academic scores, high physical scores. Low teamwork scores as he shows an inability to properly interact with his peers. Multiple fights have broken out when he gave another student an insulting nickname thinking it made them friends. Needs a sensei who can help improve his personal skills. Kakashi would be horrible for any of them. He sighed as he finished reading the reports. The man had failed so many students, not to mention his chronic lateness and other issues. No, he wasn't letting Kakashi near any of these kids, especially with the ongoing need to correct faulty education they'd already had. A firm-handed sensei, huh? He looked at the reports before growing a mischievous grin he to his grave swear he never got from Naruto. Oh, this just might work. As he worked on writing notices for the two full teams, he sent one more notice. He was sure they'd say yes, but it wouldn't hurt to make sure. Oh, this will be most interesting. Hiruzen snickered to himself, sure he made the correct team assignments. Naruto, morning Kiba. Morning Ducky. Naruto nodded to the two prideful idiots he considered his friends. Dobe. Sasuke grumbled, even as the twin swords Naruto had enhanced for him were on the Uchiha's back. In all honesty, Naruto was used to him acting like a Tsundere cat 24/7. Sup dude. Kiba grinned, grinning like a happy golden retriever while Akamaru barked eagerly. So, who do you think will be on a team with who? Naruto asked as he sat by the two, tuning out Ino and Sakura arguing which of them would be teamed up with Sasuke due to true love and all that other nonsense the delusional duo liked to spout. Morning everyone. Iruka-sensei walked into the classroom with a nod, a stack of files in the man's hand, probably the team assignments. I have to say I'm incredibly proud of all of you for graduating. You've trained hard and are ready to become full genin of Konohagakure. I'll be reading out your team assignments, and once they're all stated, you'll be free to disperse until lunch. I'd encourage you to spend that time with your teammates to be so you can get used to each other if you're not already close friends. You're to come back after the lunch period to meet your senseis. Understood? Yes, sensei. Most of the class nodded in one as Iruka nodded and began calling out teams. The first three were all composed of civilian-born ninja who Naruto didn't really know that well given how they ignored him whenever they could. Team 7. Iruka continued, Sakura Haruno. The pink-haired harpy perked up, batting her eyelashes at Sasuke who grimaced Ino Yamanaka. The blonde started trying to outdo Sakura and Choji Akamichi. Jonin-sensei is Anko Mitarashi. Naruto could swear he could hear the sound of shattering glass as the two girls' fantasies were destroyed around them. What? Shikamaru leaned forward confused. But I thought we'd be a new Ino Shikicho trio. The Hokage stated he felt that would be a poor idea. Iruka shook his head. Your fathers are all famous for their teamwork. Yes, but that means most of their strategies aren't known. People might still struggle against them, but you three are nowhere near as strong yet. That same formation would just make you three predictable and easy to defeat. A liability we can't risk in the field. Makes sense. Sasuke grunted, doing his best to appear cool and aloof even if Naruto was positive that the Uchiha was crowing with joy on the inside to not be on a team with any fangirls. Team 8. Iruka continued, will be Kiba Inazaka, Hinata Hyuga, and Shino Aburame. Jonin-sensei will be Karina Yihi. Way to go bro. Naruto grinned at Kiba who had a happy expression at being on a team with his crush. Team 9 is still in circulation. Iruka pulled out the second to last file so Team 10 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Shikamaru Nara, and Sai. Jonin-sensei is Sarutobi Asuma, the son of the Hokage? Sasuke blinked in surprise, all three of them expecting that Kakashi person to train Sasuke given the Sharingan. Wait, what about Naruto? Kiba frowned, noting that everyone else was already on a team and Naruto's name still hadn't been called. I was getting to him Kiba, don't worry. Iruka assured as he opened the last file Naruto. As there weren't enough graduates to make a final team, the Hokage reached out to a Jonin who agreed to take you on as an apprentice. You might acquire teammates should other teams have members graduate or drop from the corp, but until that time you are to be the personal student of Tsuminazaka. With that, Iruka released them all to wander the village until lunch. Hey guys, want to eat together? Kiba looked at his teammates and Sasuke's. I got some of my dad's muffins. Naruto perked up at that, stomach rumbling eagerly. Kiba's dad may not be a shinobi, but the man both the best baker Naruto had ever met, and the only nurse who didn't make his hospital visits hell. Thank you? Hinata stuttered as Shino gave a silent nod. What a pain. Shikamaru grumbled, running a hand down his face. But I know my mom would just complain if I don't eat with you lot. Naruto noticed Sai had silently come over, perking up slightly at the mention of muffins. Ichinen. Sasuke grumbled at the invitation he hadn't asked for. Stop complaining, you grumpy tsundere. Kiba didn't even bat an eye as he brought out a thermos. I brought tomato soup too. Fine. Sasuke relented, snagging the thermos as he took a sip. I'm surprised they didn't have you and Naruto on a team under your mom, Kiba. Sasuke commented as the seven walked out of the academy to go get lunch. The Ichiraku ramen stand decently close to the academy, probably worried about favoritism or something. Kiba shrugged. They can't make that sort of complaint about Naruto though, since the civilian council wouldn't let mom adopt him. What? Hinata spoke up, white eyes wide in surprise at that little tidbit. The civilian council really doesn't like me. Naruto shrugged. Can't say it isn't mutual at this point. I'm just more surprised that they didn't have Sharingan Kakashi teaching Ducky here. Think it's because I don't have my Sharingan yet? Sasuke frowned, that tidbit still rubbing Naruto's friend the wrong way. I doubt it. Naruto shook his head. Everyone knows it'll manifest eventually. I'd say it's probably more an issue with that Kakashi guy himself. So instead, you're being trained by the son of the Hokage, someone who'd once guarded the daimyo himself. Seriously? Shikamaru blinked in surprise, having not heard that tidbit. I hang out with the Hokage a lot. Naruto gave a sheepish grin. He's essentially my Gigi at this point. He likes to brag about what his son has achieved. Almost as much as he complains about how exasperating his grandson can be, given the kid keeps trying to assassinate him and trips over his own scarf pretty much every time. His friends all snickered at that mental image as they entered the best ramen shop in Konoha, the Ichirakus happily treating them to a feast like conquering heroes. Enko kicked open the door to the brat's classroom, her face split in a wide, near feral grin. Team 7, fall in. She saw the three brats she had to whip into shape staring at her in shock. More importantly though, they hadn't moved to fall in. Oh dear. Her grin became sinister as she leaked some killing intent, observing how a chunk of the genin didn't seem affected by the minuscule amount she let out. But her own brats were trembling. It seems you three are hard of hearing. I said, Team 7 fall in. The three hastily started scrambling to the front of the room. Enko, please don't traumatize the genin. Iruka sighed, the Chunin Academy teacher looking beyond tired. Make me scrub. Enko grinned, her thumbs tugging at her shiny new Jonin flak jacket. I'll trank you. She looked at then three terrified rookies. Two rake-thin girls who had been, dieting, and one Akamichi who was rather on the short side and hadn't stopped eating chips since she entered. Welp, she had work to do. Alright kiddos, welcome to hell. Population? You. I'm going to work you three into the ground till you're ready to kick ass and take names. First test? I'm just a mud clone. The real me is waiting for you at Training Ground 7. How fast you three get there will let me know how intense boot camp is. Won't that be fun? She gave a grin as she dissolved, memories going back to the original. Across town in Training Ground 7, the real her perked up, Dango stick between her teeth, as she eagerly awaited her brat's arrival. One boring as fuck hour and a half later, the three panting brats finally arrived. Damn it, Runts, what took you so long? She scowled. You took so long I ate all the dango I was going to share. Choji looked ready to cry at that. It was so far. Sakura panted, she and Ino having to lean on Choji for support. The boy was somewhat out of breath too, but nowhere near as bad as the girls, and we got lost. Choji looked sheepish, even as he continued to stuff his face with chips as he talked. And you didn't think to ask Iruka where Training Ground 7 was if you didn't know yourself? Enko raised an eyebrow and could swear she heard crickets as the three blinked olishly at her. Sweet Cammy, we have a lot of work to do. She facepalmed before standing up. Alright kiddos, normally you'd still have to pass another test to officially become genin. But I don't give a flying fuck about tradition, so instead you'd get boot camp. Another test? Sakura blinked confused, but we passed the exam. You passed the basic exam to weed out those who have no current hope of being genin. Enko shook her head. Typically the teams are then tested by their senseis to see if they get trained as genin or kicked back to the academy. But the way I see it, if you have the potential to pass the academy, then anything else can be fixed with training. Plus, unlike the bastard who trained me, I don't believe in abandoning my students. Who was your teacher? Choji looked confused even as he finished his current bag of chips. Orochimaru. Enko scowled, glad these three at least recognized the name given their expressions. It was back before anyone knew the fucked up shit he did. I didn't even know. But more importantly, do you three know why I was chosen to be your sensei? They shook their heads confused. Because I'm a tough bitch who won't care when you cry. She grinned as they looked horrified at how she described herself. Choji. She pointed at the soul boy who snapped to attention, thankfully too terrified now to resume eating. Your file showed you have a decent grasp on your family jutsu. Plus, while you aren't standing out in a good way for scores, you weren't failing either. You do, however, tend to complain about being made to stop eating to train, and rely on others to do all your thinking for you. So, first rule for these training sessions is no eating unless I give the okay. You can train your clan jutsu with your clan so you can get the calories needed for them then. I'll be teaching you other things to make sure you're more well-rounded. The boy was crying now at being told no snack breaks. Sakura. She moved on to the pinky. You have high academic scores and nothing else going for you. But I have really good chakra control. Sakura protested, sticking a leaf to her arm as if that would prove it. Kid, your chakra control is so good because you barely have enough chakra to fill up a thimble. Anko deadpanned, not to mention you're as thin as a beanpole. No, you need to learn to toughen up and not expect some boy to come in and save you, so you don't have to work. First rule for you is no more dieting. I'll be giving you a list of the bare minimum of food you're supposed to eat daily and send it back home to your parents. If I find out that you aren't using it, then there will be consequences. Am I clear? But I have to keep my figure. Sakura whined, looking absolutely pitiful. The fuck you think Shinobi and Kunoichi do? Anko gaped at the little idiot. Dieting is for civilians who don't have an active lifestyle. As a kunoichi, if you need to lose weight, you can train to burn it off. Plus, if you want a seductive figure to get a man's attention, you want some fat on your chest so you aren't flat as a board. The girl looked particularly outraged at that as Anko turned to Ino. Alright Blondie, same dieting rule as her. I'm honestly surprised your dad let you get away with dieting. Anko planned to have words with her coworker. As things stand, you three are some of the weaker ones to pass that test, especially compared to others from prior years. But I plan to break you down again and again till you're ready to get up and be badass. Kiba, teammate with me. Kiba noted Hinata perk up as a tall woman with dark hair and a dress made over those bandages. Shaking off his confusion, he started moving the second she said his team name, following her along with Hinata and Shino, sending a wave to his friends over his shoulder as he went. At least she seems less profane than the last teacher to arrive. Shino comments as the three hastily follow the woman Kiba remembered hearing was some sort of a genjutsu master. Kurinai-sensei is really very nice. Hinata assured them, I promise. Kiba was positive that he saw his sensei straighten up a bit at that as they continued to walk till they got to a place marked as Training Ground 8. Alright Genin, I am Kurinai Yuhi. The woman stared them down, expression tight. Kiba recognized someone who was doing everything they could to look stern and commanding. His mom said at least half the clan went through that phase once they hit puberty. Will we be having a secondary test now, sensei? Kiba asked as he stood by his new teammates, silently praying he didn't do anything to look stupid in front of Hinata. You know about that? Kurinai lost her serious expression from the surprised confusion Inazaka senses. He explained, whittling his ears and nose as he did so. I've overheard those sent back for the special remedial classes after failing the second test every year. Your senses are that sharp then? Kurinai looked pleased, but no. I'm well aware of the kind of team I want to train and specifically requested you three for that. You're being trained to be a tracker team given your senses, Shino's bugs, and Hinata's eyes. Any other questions? Are we going to be learning anything outside of basics and more tracking? Kiba shifted, awkwardly. I was still making plans on that front. Why? Kurinai narrowed her eyes as he gulped. Kiba knew he wasn't the smartest, but he wanted to impress Hinata and he figured the best way he could do that would be to become the strongest shinobi he could. Thankfully Naruto was a mad genius and helped him brainstorm. I heard that you're the best at genjutsu in the village. Kiba looked to the side awkwardly, and I wanted to know if you could teach me some. I know a lot of genjutsu use other mediums, so I wondered if I could use my pheromones or something to have a genjutsu space around me. Just something to give me an extra intimidation factor when I'm fighting. That is a most interesting idea, Kiba. Shino nodded, tilting his head at Kiba. I wonder if I could have a genjutsu transferred through one of my bugs biting their target. Oh, I'm gonna like training you kids. Kurinai grinned wide. Thanks, sensei. He grinned before his eyes widened. Oh shit, almost forgot. He hastily rummaged in his bag before passing the genjutsu joan in a bag. My dad made muffins for me and my friends to share with our teams. I saved you one. Some of the other Inazaka guys made fun of him for doing things like that, but Kiba saw his parents as he grew up. His mom picked his dad not because he was some super strong badass, but because he made her happy. Because his dad was nice and smart. Kiba wanted to be more like that so Hinata would like him the way he liked her. Sasuke, alright, Team 10, let's is he okay? Asuma-sensei walked into the classroom but trailed off when he noted Sai, who was staring off vacantly into space. He just had a muffin. Sasuke shrugged, tossing a bag with one to the jonin. These laced with something? The jonin, who smelt like ash smoke, looked at the treat warily. No, but he gets this way whenever he gets anything remotely sweet. Seems to last longer whenever it's from Kiba's old man. Sasuke snorted, still baffled by that bizarre fact. Okay then. Asuma-sensei shook his head as he took a bite of the baked good. Tasty. Anyway, you three follow me. I want to go over the training plan I have in mind for you lot. Sasuke nodded, giving a sharp tug to pull Sai to his feet as he followed the son of the Hokage. Time to see if the man lived up to the hype in his family name. To start with, All three of you have vastly different strengths, weaknesses, and skill sets. Asuma spoke up when they got to training ground 10, so collective training will mostly be on the basics. I have enough chakra for stable clones, so we'll alternate between group training over basics and chakra control, or more specialized training for your skills. Afternoons will be spent taking missions. What will our specific training entail? Sai, who'd come down from his sugar trip, asked in his usual emotionless tone. I'll start with yours since you asked. Asuma grinned. To start with, I've heard about your ink jutsu the academy said you like using. I'll be doing what I can to add seal knowledge to your repertoire. But more than that, you'll be given lessons about acting. I am unsure of the point of such training. Sai frowned, puzzled. Kid, shinobi work is often about blending in together until. Asuma explained, your mannerisms stick out like a sore thumb. So, I'm going to be teaching you how to better read people and also how to blend in so they don't remember you. Help stay inconspicuous. I see. Understood, sensei. Sai bowed before stepping back. Glad to hear it. Asuma grinned, the man seemingly pretty easygoing even if Sasuke was noting the various scars and other signs of a history of combat. Shikamaru, you're next. Your intellect and strategic ability is quite impressive and something to commend. Your physical abilities on the other hand are on the lacking side. For you, I plan to focus on increasing your strength, speed, stamina, and chakra reserves. Fire jutsu training is also planned so you can cast more shadows for your family style. You can learn those with your clan. And me? Sasuke straightened, curious what the man would have to say. Your clan are known to be jacks if not masters of all trades, kid. Asuma grinned. Your ability to copy damn near any jutsu makes versatility the name of the game where an Uchiha is concerned. That said, I'm aware your Sharingan isn't activated yet, so your focus for now will primarily be the basics of the 5 elements and other shinobi arts. Give you a starting point to get your body used to doing them. It'll help you use and master the things you copy. There's a bit more, but I'll save that for a moment. The man made a hand sign as 2 clones appeared, leading Shikamaru and Sai off. What else is there? Sasuke demanded, surprised that the man hadn't asked about his swords. Well, I know your swords need your Sharingan to work. Asuma shrugged, likely noting Sasuke's expression. My old man mentioned that once. But no, the big thing I want to talk about is waking up your Sharingan. I don't know if you were old enough to be made aware of this before that night, but I'm aware of how to trigger it. Sasuke's eyes snapped open wide at that. What? How? I had a friend from your clan, Shursui. Asuma gave a sad grin at that. He mentioned it once. To activate the Sharingan, it involves feeling a powerful emotion in regard to someone precious to them. Shursui said most of the time it's from feelings of grief or loss, but it can be positive too, like the determination to save one close to you or to be reunited with a loved one. In point of fact, I'm wondering if your Sharingan actually was activated that night but is just repressed. You were young, so your chakra coils might not have been able to help support a full awakening. I have an appointment scheduled at the hospital with a trained medic Nin. They're going to be doing some tests to see if that's the case and help you get it triggered fully. I could have my Sharingan. Sasuke wanted to demand that they go now. His eyes were the proof of who he was. The only thing he had that tied him to his family. It was more than just power. He needed that tether. He needed them. Even if I'm wrong, I'll do what I can to help you. Asuma grinned. We know positive emotions work, so maybe pride in one's friends? I know you hang out with the Inazaka and Uzumaki boys, so, if need be, I'll arrange some joint missions. Shursui was a friend of mine, and one of the best shinobi I ever met. I'm going to make you even better. Naruto, hey squirt. Sum grinned as she stepped into the room to collect him, the others having already left. Yo! Naruto grinned, putting up the resistance bow he'd been training with in the back. About time you got here. Best teacher, so I had to arrive last, you know how it is. The woman gave a grin as she waved a hand flippantly. Come on, walk and talk. So, how's this whole apprentice thing gonna work? Naruto asked as he finally left the academy for what was hopefully the last time. I focus on training you and we join other teams as needed for their missions given it's just us. I'll probably have you use shadow clones to blitz to a bunch of D ranks for the first couple of days. Gets them out of the way and lets us start doing the fun stuff. Oh, I'm so rubbing that in Kiba's face. Naruto snickered, not to mention how Sasuke would react. Boys. Sum snorted, ruffling his hair as he tried, and failed, to bat her hand away. But yeah, for the most part it'll just be me helping put you through your paces. I'll save teamwork stuff till you get teammates, whenever that is. So that's it then? Naruto was surprised but figured he really shouldn't be. He'd been training with the Inazaka clan for about a year now. It really was just a continuation for him. Not quite. Sum sighed as Naruto noted she seemed tense. There's a secret you deserve to know, and the Hokage is finally going to tell you. I've been pushing for it to happen earlier, but he was stubborn about it, and I didn't feel like violating an S-class law. S-class? Naruto's eyes were bulging. What sort of law is that? What secret could I even be tied to? Kid, it's about why the village treats you the way they do. Sum knelt down and gave his shoulders a squeeze. I know right now it sounds confusing and scary, but I promise, it won't change anything. You're still Naruto Uzumaki, same blonde brat I pulled out of the forest a year ago. You're still good as family to me and the others, and we'll always be here to support you, okay? Oh, okay. Naruto gulped, giving a nod even as his sensei and mother figure led him to the Hokage's tower. A heavy feeling of dread settled in his gut as they went. What sort of secret was he about to be told? Naruto, eyes blurred with unshed tears. Naruto breathed heavily, throwing punch after punch against the training dummy. He could hear wood splintering underneath the straw, feeling the skin of his knuckles starting to split and drip blood against the target of his venting. There was no technique. No form. Only trying to push out every ounce of his rage. Naruto? Hearing a confused voice, Naruto whirled around, spotting a girl with brown hair done up in buns. Tenten? He recognized her after a minute from his class the last year with Mizuki. She looked about to comment on his form before she noticed his expression and the bloody knuckles. Holy dash. Are you alright? She hurried over, pulling out some gauze as she wrapped his knuckles. Naruto himself too stunned to bother protesting or saying it wasn't necessary. I'll be fine. Naruto gave a strange chuckle, wincing at the look Tenten gave him for that. This doesn't look fine, Naruto. Tenten frowned before glancing up, noting the shinobi headband on his forehead. Wanna talk about it? She sounded awkward, but he couldn't blame her. While they never had issues with each other at the academy, they'd never been all that close either. It's nothing. Naruto tried to wave it off again. I just found out who my parents were. Found out a few things I'd never known. Tenten thankfully didn't ask who his parents were. She didn't press the issue, just continued to silently bandage his hands. Well, I see you got your headband. Tenten gave him a grin as she tried to change the topic to something more positive. Yeah. Once the Hokage cleared house at least. Naruto kept himself from wincing. It felt weird not calling the Hokage Gigi, but he wasn't sure if he could call him that for a while. He understood why the old man had kept quiet about the Kyuubi, about his parents, but it still hurt. Cleared house? Tenten blinked in confusion. You didn't hear about that? Naruto looked surprised but shrugged it off. A lot of the teachers at the academy and even the headmaster was sabotaging the curriculum and got caught. They were even changing grades, so that's why Guy-sensei doubled down on training. Tenten had a look of realization as she finished bandaging up his knuckles. I never found out who your team was. Naruto flexed his fingers, feeling his rapid healing already taking effect underneath the white gauze. My teammates are Nijihira and Rock Lee. Tenten grinned before noticing Naruto's scowl of distaste. My condolences. Naruto didn't feel Tenten deserved that as a team. I know Niji's a bit stuck up, but he's not that bad. Tenten tried to assure him, only to look confused once more when he shook his head. I was apologizing at you being forced to be on a team with someone like Lee who only graduated thanks to nepotism and the teachers not liking me. Naruto clarified. You'd best explain and quickly. That is my teammate you're throwing accusations at. Tenten's eyes narrowed. Tenten, you remember the academy requirements to graduate. How important the 3 base jutsu are to pass, and yet he can't do any of them. He could only access taijutsu, and he wasn't good at that at all back at the academy. He only passed because your teacher asked for him to be passed and put on his team. A teacher who looks like an older version of Lee. But you said they passed him because they didn't like you. Tenten floundered. I was the best at the henjin our year. I could do the substitution flawlessly. While I wasn't taught taijutsu properly, my stamina was the best at the academy as I was consistently outrunning and hiding from ANBU after my pranks. Naruto laid out each point, and with every remark he saw Tenten's resistance to his idea breaking down further and further. But the academy teachers hated me because of something stupid the civilian council used me as a scapegoat for. Lee passed while I was failed. Mizuki lying to me and saying if I spent a week alone in the forest of death, he'd pass me. Tenten's eyes bulbs out at that little tidbit, recognizing the name of the dangerous training ground. I don't know what to think about all this. Tenten looked torn and Naruto felt a little guilty about breaking her view of her team, but he'd rather she'd be prepared to train harder to compensate than just trust in Lee's ability. Maybe he did get better with a teacher, but Naruto wouldn't believe it till he saw it. Still though, he found talking to her helped take his mind off what the Hokage had told him. So, they kept up the conversation. Talking about their goals, what shinobi arts they focused on, tips for accuracy and seals. They only stopped when they noticed it growing late, both of them splitting off to head to their homes. Tenten, hey there kiddo. Hearing her dad's voice, Tenten was roused from her thoughts, looking up at her father where he sat behind the counter of the weapon shop. He quickly noticed her conflicted expression, eyes narrowing in focus. What happened? He demanded, quickly flipping the shop's thing to close to focus on her. I ran into an old classmate, Naruto. Tenten rubbed her arm awkwardly. Uzumaki? Hearing her dad recognize his name, Tenten frowned, remembering Naruto mentioning how the civilian council used him as a scapegoat for something. Yeah. Dad, what did the civilian council blame him for? Tenten asked, narrowing her eyes when her dad choked on his own spit. I can't tell you, Tenten. He sighed, holding up a hand when she got ready to protest. Can't, not won't. All I can say is that there's an S-class law involved in the matter. The only ones who can tell you without violating it are the Hokage himself or Naruto. I can say that his summarization of the civilian council using him as a scapegoat is an accurate one. Kid doesn't deserve the shit he goes through. He also said that my teammate Lee only passed because the academy hated him, and that guy sensei asked for him. He also says he thinks Lee is Guy's secret kid. Tenten commented as her dad blinked in confusion. Wait, I've seen your team. You're telling me that Lee kid is trying to say he isn't related to Guy? Naruto, head down and lost in thoughts. Naruto barely registered where he was, only pausing when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Jerking startled, he spun and saw concerned Ashitaka Inazaka, Kiba's dad, looking at him. Geez Naruto, what happened? Ashitaka knelt down, checking over Naruto given the bandages that had faint red staining from the initial blood from when Tenten wrapped them. The Hokage told me about the Kyuubi and about my parents. Naruto sunk into himself somewhat. He knew why so many people hated him now. Oh Naruto. Ashitaka pulled him into a hug. No change, no revealed anger about the Kyuubi. Just gentle comfort. Naruto broke, gripping the man's scrubs as he let out the tears he'd been fighting since the reveal. He didn't know how long they stayed like that, how many tears were shed as he poured out his rage and grief, but eventually he found himself moving again, Ashitaka leading him back to the Inazaka compound. Kid! Hearing Tsum, Naruto looked up to see his sensei and the woman who had become the closest thing he had to a mother rush over, Kiba and Hana behind her. What happened Naruto? Kiba noted the bandages instantly. His nose probably smelling the dried blood. Mom said you ran off after you spoke with the Hokage? Seeing them all there, the family who'd found him, Naruto's head dropped once more, shoulders shaking as he mustered up what he could to talk, hoping Kiba and Hana wouldn't think any less of him. The Hokage told me why the village hated me and why my parents were. Naruto's voice was shaky as he spoke, noting out of the corner of his eye Tsum's confused glance with her husband. She hadn't been in the room when the Hokage had revealed anything, having been waiting outside. Apparently, she only knew about the fox in his gut. Naruto, what did he say? Hana asked gently as she crouched down to look him in the eye. On the day I was born, the Kyuubi attacked the village after being pulled out of my mother. Naruto's voice was getting raspy from the tears he'd been shedding. Tsum and Ashitaka both going stiff at learning there had been a prior Jinchuriki in the village. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. But then my father sealed the Kyuubi into me. But the Kyuubi was defeated by Kiba trailed off, putting 2 and 2 together. Minato Namikaze. Naruto confirmed, feeling the eyes of his father's face on the mountain staring down at him. Sasuke. Sasuke's shoulders were tense as he followed his sensei into the Konoha Shinobi Hospital, the facility designed to focus on treating shinobi and kunoichi rather than civilians. Relax, kid. Sasuke looked over at his sensei, the jonin putting out his cigarette as they walked through the doors. My test results are in. Sasuke grumbled, his hands feeling twitchy as Asuma signed them in. They know of my Sharingan. Like I said, kid, relax. Asuma paused to give him a grin and a reaffirming shoulder squeeze. Even if you don't have your Sharingan yet, you'll get it, and we still have other things to train on. Either they're ready and we can start working on them, or they're not, and we can start making plans about how to wake it up. Stressing out won't change the results. It'll only make your hair fall out sooner. Rolling his eyes at the snarky joke, Sasuke took a deep breath to make himself relax. Yeah, you're right. He pauses. Hey, if dojutsu are supposed to work through chakra circulating through the eyes, do you think Naruto could make a seal to trigger them? That's a hard one. Asuma frowned as they started heading up to the room where the doctor who'd run some tests earlier in the week was waiting. Your dojutsu is different from every other one I've heard of. Yours needs emotion to grow. Running chakra through it might do it, might do nothing, or might cause some serious problems. We can always bring up the idea to some professionals if need be. It was just a thought. Sasuke shrugged, not all that put off by the lack of instant agreement. The two remained in silence until they got to the floor that primarily catered to treating genin. All right, kid, you wait here. Asuma clapped a hand to his shoulder. I'll go make sure the doctor's ready. Grunting in response, Sasuke sat down in one of the empty chairs, having nothing to do but observe the various shinobi and orderlies moving about. Katsuki? One orderly did a double take at their coworker, Sasuke noting he was just out of their line of sight and deciding to try training his eavesdropping. I thought you were supposed to be looking after that Uzumaki brat. Sasuke frowned as he listened in. Naruto had told him and Kiba about how most of the civilians treated him, and he'd even seen it a few times now that he knew to look. But it still baffled him. That new guy offered to take over for me. The uncaring voice of this Katsuki person chuckled before Sasuke heard the sounds of footsteps walking off. So I'm off to go chat up Hanoa in the break room. Wish me luck, new guy. The first voice sounded confused before switching to uncaring. Meh, whatever. Sasuke though got a bad feeling in his gut. Naruto was his friend, even if he refused to ever admit the words out loud. Tossing Asuma's instructions aside, Sasuke silently moved over to the desk, finding the room listings which included where Naruto was. Moving swiftly, he found the isolated room and silently opened the door, seeing a smirking Mizuka pulling down a doctor's mask while drawing a kunai on an unconscious Naruto. Get away from him! Sasuke snarled, feeling his chakra spike alongside his rage. His blood boiled as he leapt towards Mizuki, who leapt out of the way. His rage quickly started to falter though, assaulted by confusion as Mizuki seemed to flicker in and out of existence. As Mizuki and Naruto both fully faded away, Sasuke grit his teeth, feeling his eyes itch. Congrats, kid. Head snapping toward the door, Sasuke saw a smirking Asuma leaning against a frame along with a woman he recognized as Kiba's sensei after a moment. Turning towards a mirror at Asuma's nod, Sasuke saw his reflection bearing bright red Sharingan eyes, each with one tomo. What? Sasuke breathed out, praying to anything that would listen that this wasn't a trick. The doctor came to me yesterday, said your Sharingan were all but developed. Asuma shrugged. Your body wasn't ready to manifest them during the massacre, but the groundwork was laid. They just needed a little push. So, I got Kurenai here to set up a little genjutsu. Since you thought it was real, your emotions were real. Thank you. Sasuke's voice was soft, but thankfully Asuma didn't press the issue. Head over to Training Ground 3. There's a Jonin who has a transplanted Sharingan from his teammate who's supposed to meet you there today if this worked, and I already sent him word that it did. If he isn't there within half an hour, head to our usual training ground and I'll help you get used to what I can of that. Why wouldn't he be there? Sasuke frowned in confusion even as he shut off his Sharingan. No point in wasting chakra. He's notorious for being late. Asuma scowled. I already made it clear I wouldn't tolerate his usual bullshit here. So do let me know if he tries to blow you off. Asuma's smile was downright vicious. I'd hate him to think me a liar after all. Asuma, seeing Sasuke head out of the hospital, Asuma turned to Kurenai. Thanks again for helping out here. He gave her a grin as the two set out to meet with the rest of their students for regular training. I didn't trust my genjutsu to work, especially if there was a chance of the kid recognizing my chakra from it. Of course. Kurenai nodded before frowning. Although, why do I get the feeling part of you is hoping Kakashi will be late? He tried protesting to the Hokage about not getting to teach either Sasuke or Naruto. Asuma scowled. He wasn't as close to Naruto as his father was, or as close as he'd heard Konohamaru was becoming, but he still liked the kid. Not to mention how much he knew it was eating up at his old man about how Naruto had been distancing him from the Sarutobis since the truth came out. Sasuke, I get, Kakashi does spend more time mourning his team than even reading his porn. Kurenai wrinkled her nose at the mention of the little orange books. But why so upset about Naruto? He's a good kid from what Kiba said, but I don't get why Kakashi would care. Kakashi was the student of the Yondaime. Asuma shrugged, helping with the cover story to hide Naruto's family. He probably sees the kid as his sensei's legacy given the seal. That makes sense. Kurenai nodded. So, how are your other students coming along? Rough. Asuma sighed. Sai has clearly gone through root training but with no proof besides just look at him. We can't do jack all to Danzo. Kid has zero emotions he shows at all and doesn't understand how others work or think. I heard that he tried learning how to integrate himself with groups of others by using a book on making friends back at the academy. Not a bad idea. Kurenai frowned, a little weirdly put, but not a bad idea to get help at making friends. He didn't want friends, he wanted to know how to infiltrate and make people see him as a friend. Asuma corrected, but the chapter mentioned friends often give each other nicknames. So, he tried calling two of his classmates dickless and ugly, and was confused when they tried to hit him. Kurenai's face palm was response enough. And please tell me Shikamaru is better? Yes and no. Asuma eagerly lit up another cigarette once they were out of the building. Needing the stress relief, he's not as emotionally damaged as Sai, but at least Sai is willing to train and put in effort. I've never met anyone lazier than Shikamaru, and I've barely been able to do anything outside of strength and stamina conditioning for him. He's barely above those fangirl graduates in physical ability, having wanted to bank through on his mind and clever tactics alone. So, I guess me bragging about how eager all three of my students are to grow wouldn't go over well? Kurenai asked with a somewhat playful smirk, as he flipped her off. Rude guess I'm bragging then. Kurenai chuckled as she continued, Hinata's still on the nervous side, but her teammates have been very encouraging with her, which helps. Shino seems to be determined to think of other things he can learn to complement his clan's bug arts, and even ways to recreate other shinobi skills through his bugs. Training them to transmit genjutsu through bite from all the chakra they eat is one I'd never heard of before. And Kiba? Asuma was honestly more intrigued by the feral member of Sasuke's friend group, trying to learn how to fight smarter, very determined to learn a specific genjutsu without seals, and is always doing what he can to woo Hinata. Kurenai snorted in bemusement. I love the girl like a sister, but she's dense as a rock about that boy's feelings. Did you know he gave her a special book infused with seals for her flower pressing? The thing keeps the flowers preserved, so whenever the page opens the flower stands up and blooms. She just thought it was a gesture of friendship. Ah, young love. Asuma snickered as the two finally split apart. Students to teach. Guy. Frowning, Guy stood alone in the training ground with just Tenten, having sent Lee and Niji home already. Did you have something to talk to me about, Guy-sensei? Tenten asked. She still called him sensei, still listened to him during training, but there was something different about how she interacted with him and Lee recently. She hadn't changed towards Niji, so he knew it wasn't something going on in her life in general, but something specific towards him and his successor for the strong fist. Yes, I wish to know why you've been spending less and less time with your team. Guy frowned as he brought up that point. Up until a week ago, the three would often share the training ground, training alone but together in their respective styles well into the evening. They didn't show signs of being the closest friends, but there was a degree of respect and camaraderie there. But for the past week he hadn't seen her doing so once. She even addressed Lee far less than she used to. I've been training with others instead. Tenten answered, answering his question but avoiding the issue. Tenten, why have you been distancing yourself from myself and Lee? Guy pressed the issue with a frown. I'm not sure I can respect you or Lee as much as I used to sensei. Tenten admitted as Guy gaped floored at the admission. Not since I found out you used your pull as Jonin to have Lee graduate when he wouldn't have otherwise and costing someone else their slot. Hard to trust a teammate as much when they got where they are from nepotism, and how they only have the level they are from all those private lessons I saw you gave him. I mean, I get it, he is your kid. But well, I can't see things the same now. When he didn't respond, she took that as her cue to leave. It was some time later before he'd regained enough of his shocked mind to speak aloud. She thinks Lee and I are related? Is it the eyebrows? Naruto. Letting out a steady breath, Naruto loosed his arrow, seeing it sail through multiple moving obstacles to hit the training dummy he'd been aiming at. About time you got that shot down. Sim spoke up from behind him as they saw the arrow sink in true. You've been working on that one for a while. It's an important one if I want to be able to use this to take out a target without collateral damage. Naruto shrugged, lowering his bow as he turned to face his sensei, noting all the clones he had scattered throughout the training ground. They were split between studying new seal texts, working on chakra control, or making new seal-infused arrows. Fair enough. Sim shrugged, but you'll get the chance to show me. Your clones have done enough D-rank missions. I got permission to take you on AC rank. Already? Naruto blinked surprised, part of him wondering if this was the Hokage trying to get back into his good graces. Like I said, it's simple. Sim shrugged as she whittled the mission scroll, eliminating a small bandit group attacking traders on the route to the capital. You'll be observing the camp and taking out as many as you can with your arrows. If they get too close, then I'll take over as I could clear that camp out by myself easily. And if there are any missing no matter the rank, you'll leave them to me. Got it? Naruto gulped at her expression but nodded to the demand before frowning, realizing this wasn't just a mission but his first kill outside of a rabbit. Don't worry, kid. Sim's voice became gentle as she saw his expression, giving his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. I'll be there with you every step of the way. Both on the job and after. You've got this, I believe in you. Tenten, blowing a strand of loose hair from her face, Tenten huffed in boredom. She was watching the shop alone today as her dad recovered from a bug, but she'd barely had a single customer to occupy her time. Bud. She groaned, slumping down on the counter, pleading with the universe for even a short relief from her current situation. She couldn't even really train properly in here without risking damaging the shop or the merchandise. Sup, Tenten? Hearing the chipper voice of her training buddy, Tenten sat up with a grin. Hey, Naruto. She nodded to the blonde. What you in here for? Picking up some supplies. He gave her a nervous grin. Weird, she'd never seen him nervous, only ever cheerful, or their talk during his breakdown. D-ranks being a pain? She winced, knowing how horrid those were with how long they lasted. If she had to guess, the stress was having him go back into pranking. Actually, I stopped counting D-ranks after I did 30 of them. He waved it off as her eyes bulged, the blasé way he said it cluing her in that it wasn't an empty boast. No, this is my first C rank. Well, damn, Naruto. Tenten gave him a grin, punching his shoulder playfully. Gonna make the rest of us look bad. How the hell did you do so many D-ranks so fast anyway? Shadow clones. Naruto shrugged as she blinked in confusion. What clones? Tenten frowned, having never heard of that type of bunshin, just the regular one and the elemental variants. High chakra cost ones that return the memories of the user once they pop. Naruto explained, apparently I'm one of those people who were born with absurdly high chakra capacities, too high to use the basic bunshin. Kind of like this one missing Nin Kisame Hashigake. Tenten knew her eyes were practically sparkling as she got to talk about a holder of one of the coolest swords in the world, the tailed beast without a trail. Weird title aside, he's one of the most powerful swordsmen in the world. But why haven't I heard of more people using this jutsu if it's so useful? There were other students who'd had to work harder to get the clone jutsu down after all. It's in the Forbidden Scroll as a kinjutsu. Naruto's answer made her choke on her own spit. Most people don't even have enough chakra to safely make one outside of a jonin. Although I have heard a few have combined the concept with basic elemental clones to make singular clones that are more durable, but still transfer memories. I wish I had someone to teach me that kind of stuff. Tenden sighed. Guy, well, he's Guy. Apart from what you pointed out to me before, I've been thinking more on it, and I don't really think he should have been a jonin sensei. He'd be great at training a single person in just taijutsu as a master to apprentice relationship, but that's it. He teaches our team, but it's just on taijutsu and stamina conditioning with a bit of pointers for basics for other arts. Apparently, most of the shinobi arts are things he can't physically do or has zero talent in, and he's still trying to claim Lee's not his bastard kid? Naruto raised a skeptical eyebrow in regard to her sensei. He claims the eyebrows are a complete coincidence. Tenten nodded. But I've not found anything that really helps you know. I'd love to learn medical jutsu or more elemental ones, but I don't have anyone to teach me. Best I could do is keep helping you with your seals. Naruto shrugged, the blonde and her having brainstormed seals together, as she saw his natural profanity with the art. But my sis Hana Inazaka. Tenten repressed a smile at Naruto, almost calling the girl his sister. knowing how close he'd come to the bestial clan as a vet for the Niken. She might have advice on basic medical jutsu and keep his dad as a civilian nurse so you could learn some non-chakra healing stuff from them. I could ask if they'd show you, I'd appreciate it. Tenten gave her friend a warm smile, appreciating what he's willing to do. But anyway, you said you had a C rank, yeah? Bandit elimination. A small group attacking merchants to the capital. Naruto's smile became strained and nervous again. I am the one who's supposed to take the camp out. My sensei said she'd only step in if the bandits get too close to me or when I'm spotted or if there's a missing nin. Naruto. Tenten's voice softened as she remembered her own first kill. Helping the three of them through it had been one of the few truly good moments Guy had as a sensei. These people are attacking people, killing them. They're preying on the weak and defenseless, so it's no different than putting down a wild animal. Technically it is, as a bandit was worse given that they choose that life. I know. Naruto's hands trembled a bit as he got a few more quivers of arrows, some kunai, and sealing ink up to the counter. I just what if I freeze? Then you freeze and do better the next time, even if only a little. Tenten's voice was gentle as she rang Naruto up, making sure to keep looking into her friend's eyes. You don't need to be the Hokage right away, Naruto. The journey of 1,000 miles has to begin with a single step. All that matters is that you don't break. Your sensei will be there for you, your friends Kiba and Sasuke will be there for you, and I will too. Tenten wasn't sure why the grateful smile made her stomach flutter, but she pushed it aside. Her friend needed support right now, not confusing feelings. Naruto. Taking in a slow breath, Naruto moved through the trees. He knew some sensei was around, but he had no idea where. After so long of training with him, she'd picked up some of his stealth tricks, and now even he couldn't find her if she didn't want to be found. In the small clearing below, he saw a group of bandits. He could count 16 out and about in the camp, but was sure there were still more in the tents themselves. Reaching to his quiver, he remembered what rules he'd been given for the mission as he called out the arrow he wanted from the storage seals. Each bandit has to die. Each bandit has to be in good enough shape to have their heads turned in. The camp can't just be blown up or other collateral damage as some wish to investigate it, and make sure they aren't working for anyone. And he had to be careful of where he shot, and what he shot in case they had innocent people held as slaves or prisoners. No more than a rabid dog. Naruto whispered the advice from Tenten to himself as he drew the string back on his bow, the arrow covered in seals that flowed like wisps of smoke down the shaft. He loosed a shot, taking out a bandit who was isolated as the arrow flew silently, the seals absorbing all sound as it hit the bandit in the jugular. They fell, crying out and clutching their throat where the arrow was stuck, blood gushing out. So much blood, the bandit was so afraid. Naruto forced himself to not think about it, distracting himself by noting that the other bandits didn't seem to hear the commotion or noises from their dying friend. Did his sound nullification arrow spread to those it impaled? He'd have to figure out more later. Drawing out more silence arrows, he took out everyone who was out of sight, noting that each one failed to draw attention with their death cries. Soon enough though, he only had the ones out in the open left. Lowering his old goggles over his eyes, special seals in place on their frames, he drew back a new type of arrow and fired, hitting the one who looked like they were in charge given their placement, and focus on a table of maps. When it hit them in the back of their skull, the arrow released a massive burst of blinding light, his goggles protecting him as the bandits all cried out in shock and pain. He rained more and more arrows down, working to eliminate the bandits quickly before they could figure out where the arrows were coming from. Of the 16 that had been there at the beginning, he'd only taken out 11. And more were coming out of the tent, including. His train of thought was cut off by the clap of thunder from a lightning jutsu, the largest tent bursting open as a man with a slashed Kumo headband stepped out. There was a missing nin, and one he recognized. Sum had given his shadow clone several copies of the bingo book to memorize just in case, to know about the various opponents he might run into. This was a B-ranked missing nin, former Jonin of Kumo, Goro Raiden, the Fist of Thunder. He went rogue after trying to stage a coup in Kumo, fleeing and abandoning his allies when it was clear he would fail. The man was blasting killing intent as Naruto choked, not used to feeling the horrible energy as it filled the clearing. He grit his teeth, trying to force his body to move through the killing intent. The missing nin was blasting indiscriminately, his own bandits trembling and some even having heart attacks from it. Some made said efforts needless. The head of the Inazaka surged from the tree line doing the Inazaka farm over farm technique, hers so strong it was making a cyclone of wind behind her. Every bandit she passed fell to pieces, quite literally, as her claws cut them to ribbons. He saw his sensei hit the B-ranked missing nin with the power of a rampaging bull, slamming him hard into the ground as the killing intent dissipated from his shock. Some didn't waste time. She didn't brag, or grandstand, or boast. She just grabbed the stunned criminal's neck and jerked it sharply, snapping the vertebrae as the missing nin who'd frozen him with a single blast of killing intent was eliminated in a moment by his sensei. Naruto! Snapping to attention at his sensei's shout, Naruto looked out where she was staring up at his hiding spot. Shadow clones. Sweep the camp and the forest for traps and lingering bandits, go. Doing so instantly, Naruto spammed as many clones as he could, hoping if he focused on a new task, He wouldn't have to think about the blood. Sasuke. Expression blank. Sasuke stood at the back of the room as he observed the three adults in the room. Apparently Kakashi had complained to the Hokage about Asuma-sensei burning his collection of porn books for refusing to show up to train Sasuke. I warned you what would happen. Asuma glared. You want to mourn? Do it on your own damn time. It's been years, Kakashi. And yet you still do nothing but wallow in pity and self-loathing, screwing with everyone else's lives when they need you to do something. Enough. The tired Hokage raised his voice a hair before Kakashi could respond. Kakashi, I'll have words with Asuma about breaking into your home and destroying your possessions. But he was right to be upset. You had a responsibility, and you neglected it. Consider this meeting your last warning. If I don't start seeing improvement, then I'll have to take action. You're dismissed. The two Jonin nodded, albeit reluctantly, and vanished, but Sasuke stayed put. You're still here? The Hokage raised a questioning eyebrow, not scolding but more curious. I had a couple questions. Sasuke stepped forward. You're the only one I can think who'd be able to answer them. Well, I don't have any other meetings for a half hour. The Hokage checked his clock. What are your questions? First, what would I need to do to reclaim my father's seat as the police chief of Konoha? Sasuke tried to straighten his back as he talked about his family's old institution, the Shinobi Police Force, a force he intended to rebuild better than it had ever been. Achieving the rank of Jonin would be best. The Hokage answered easily. Prove yourself as a Chunin and I could be convinced to at least let you start rebuilding a proper police force. Nobody would take orders from a genin commissioner seriously. I figured that. Sasuke nodded. And my other question, why do the villagers hate Naruto? Sasuke demanded, feeling his Sharingan bleed red from his budding frustration. He's my companion. He wouldn't admit to the blonde being a friend, and the people of this village, his village, hate him. They spit on him. They continue to betray him. I want to know what the hell gives them the right? Oh, make Naruto. Gaping in confusion, Naruto watched as his sensei fight and grapple with the missing Nin. Selena called the Catwoman from the hidden village of cats. The missing Nin, for some reason wearing a cat suit, was rolling on the ground as she and Suminazaka wrestled and grappled, hurling insults at each other like cats and dogs. I don't even Naruto gaped at the absurd fight down below, the angry battle only pausing when the two worked together to kill the rest of the bandits, who were calling for hair pulling and torn clothes. Why is this my life? Naruto sighed as he slapped a palm to his face. Naruto. Giving a yell, Naruto swung his sword down at Tenten, who dodged the strike, lashing out with her own training blade at Naruto, who deflected the strike. You're getting better. Tenten panted, the two of them having been training hard that day given it was Tenten's day off from team training and Sum was handling a clan meeting and couldn't do training that day. Thanks. Naruto gave his friend a grin. Gotta do the clan proud, you know? I'm still just miffed you won't tell me what your sword does. Tenten mock pouted at him, well aware that he'd inscribed seals into his sword. Can't share all my tricks. Naruto grinned cheekily. You still won't tell me what you're trying to do with those giant-ass scrolls I know you've been working on. A girl's gotta have some secrets. Tenten snickered before rushing back in, dancing an intricate dance of blades as the two slashed and parried, dodged and struck. So, Naruto grunted, you ever figure out your elemental affinity? Or are you a lucky little protagonist and have multiple elements? Lightning. Tenten gave an eager grin. I've been trying to find anyone in the village who has the element to see why they can teach me since Guy doesn't really do ninjutsu. I'll ask Sasuke if he has anything in his clan library. Naruto ducked under Tenten's slash before lashing out with a kick. It's how I got the first exercise to controlling my wind nature. Wind, huh? Tenten shot forward, going for a big overhead slice. That'll help with cutting. Might want to train lightning too, since that'll help with your arrows piercing. Maybe a SIA. Naruto's response was cut off as Tenten caught her slash partway to shoot it back upwards. It grazed him, but unfortunately for his bun-haired training partner left her overextended as he managed to disarm her. Damn it. Tenten grumbled. The swallow cut is a pain in the ass to master. Still useful. Naruto frowned as he thought back to the rapid change in direction of her attack. I'll have to see about getting that one down. Anyway, I was talking about maybe making a seal to generate lightning chakra on my arrowheads for piercing. If I figure it out, I'll show you how to do it for your kunai, and I can show you the swallow cut. Tenten grinned, resting her blunt training sword on her shoulder. Alright, get ready to sweat, rookie. Tenten-sensei takes no prisoners. Sasuke, expression pinched, Sasuke walked to his team's training ground, ignoring the brainless sycophants trying to catch his attention as he walked. Every day he'd been visiting the Shinobi hospital to watch the doctors as they did their work. He'd been studying the journals of past Sharingan users and found his eye's perception was far above what the normal was. There were even claims that others with that level of perception could see onto the cellular level. Deciding to take that and learn an art he saw next to no record of in the Uchiha library, Sasuke started studying with the medic Nin to improve what he could do. Getting to the training ground, Sasuke ignored the snoring Shikamaru and the meditating Sai. Moving over to the sandbags, Sasuke grit his teeth as he began training his forms on them, working out the frustration he'd been feeling ever since his conversation with the Hokage. Non-answers. Dismissal. The Hokage had brushed it off, acting like hatred was an exaggeration. Not my place? Sasuke grit his teeth as he threw a hard punch into the bag, feeling the sting on his knuckles as he continued to throw punch after punch. Just focus on being a friend and don't pay the villagers' mind. Before he could throw another punch, he found his wrist caught by Asuma. There are better ways to burn a frustration, kid. The chain-smoking Jonin sighed, removing his cigarette to put it out. I heard about your talk with my old man. Gonna tell me to drop it too? Sasuke scowled. No. Asuma shook his head as Sasuke felt a glimmer of relief that his sensei wouldn't act like the Hokage. Now don't get me wrong. I get why my dad said what he did. I don't agree with it. Asuma held up a hand before Sasuke could retort, just that I understand it. My dad retired as third a long time ago for a reason. He's tired and makes mistakes. Often when he tries to fix them, he overcorrects. The problem is that most of the candidates that could become the fifth Hokage would either make things worse or lack some crucial trait needed. No, I'm going to give you a bit of advice. The Hokage won't tell you what you want to know. There are laws preventing almost anyone else from filling you in. So go ask the source, Naruto. Sasuke pieced it together even if he felt nervous at the idea. He still couldn't admit to anyone that Naruto was his friend. Not even himself, but later. Asuma shook his head before giving a sharp whistle as the Shikamaru was startled awake and Sai roused from his meditation. Alright you three, I've got good news. Asuma grinned. You three have all grown lately. Sasuke, I've heard about your training at the hospital. Sai, you're getting better at interacting with people without putting them on edge. And Shikamaru, you're less of a pathetic little noodle. The tired genius flipped the smirking man off. Pair that with improved teamwork, I got you all a treat. Asuma pulled out a mission scroll that Sasuke noticed at a glance. Your first C rank. We leave in an hour to escort a bridge builder back to his home in Wave. Get your gear and meet me at the main gate. Naruto. Yawning with a stretch, Naruto trudged through the village to look for a snack to eat. Sum had given him the day off from training and Tenten was out on a mission, so there wasn't much to do at the moment besides quell the munchies. Naruto. Jerking, Naruto's head snapped over to see Sum running over. We have an emergency mission. You have your gear? Unsealing the mission pack that he kept sealed on him at all times, Naruto nodded as Sum turned and bolted. Giving chase, Naruto kept up with Sum and Kuramaru. What happened? Naruto got out as he ran, making sure his blade and bow were ready. Asuma sent a request for backup. Sum narrowed her eyes as they ran. His team were on a basic C rank that was supposed to be a simple escort mission with no threat larger than some bandits or wolves. Instead, their group got attacked by a couple of B-ranked missing Nin, the Demon Brothers of Mist. They're working for a shipping tycoon who's trying to take over Wave Country. That shouldn't have been a C rank. Naruto frowned, getting a bad feeling as he started prepping his quiver with sealed arrows. No, it shouldn't. Sum shook her head, but the Demon Brothers aren't known to have worked with anyone else, so at the moment it was deemed safe enough to continue escorting the client back to his home. The backup is case more enemy Nin are hired on. I'm a high rank. Kunoichi and Asuma is on the lower end of S rank after his time guarding the daimyo. With us, and your 4 genin, we should be able to handle most opponents. Understood. Naruto nodded, readying himself for battle. The report said that there shouldn't be any current issue, but he had a bad feeling in his gut. Zabuza. Frowning, Zabuza observed the genin on the banks of the lake. He had Asuma Sarutobi trapped in a water prison and had assumed a single water clone would be enough to kill the 3 genin. Instead, 2 of them moved faster than a genin should and took it down. Water clones were useful and cheap to make when it comes to chakra consumption, but they were also sadly never more than 1/10 the power of their creator. Plus a solid enough hit would make them dissolve. Gotta say, I expected more from one of the daimyo's fire guardians. Zabuza snorted. You fought me in my element. But I suppose that's the issue with you, Leaf Nin. You're only good when you have a team. As he spoke, he watched his group of 3 water clones having some fun toying with the genin, testing what the current brats of the world's strongest shinobi village were capable of. Hearing a faint whistle, Zabuza looked up to see an arrow flying overhead before it burst into smoke to reveal a tiny blonde brat. What the Zabuza was caught off guard for only a moment, but in that moment the blonde used a substitution to replace themselves with the Suma, who appeared in mid-air before vanishing again to be replaced with another blonde. Both of them clones, judging by his senses. Killing the 2 clones with a swing of his sword, Zabuza was already moving towards the shore where he saw more blondes appearing. The group he was fighting and his target being brought further back. Shadow Arrow Jutsu. The clones shouted in tandem as a volley of arrows became a rain. Iron water wall. Zabuza scowled, using a single-handed hand sign to make a water barrier, the arrows sticking in as his clones burst. Good work, Naruto. A feral woman he recognized as an Inazaka by the markings and Wolf grinned. Stay back and provide cover fire. Asuma and I will handle him from here. Yes, sensei. The blonde kid, Naruto, nodded, forming more clones who surrounded the target with the other genin, each clone having a bow ready and aimed outward. More leaves to burn. Zabuza scoffed, cracking his neck as he worked to not show any concern at facing 2 high-ranked jonin. Asuma was ranked roughly equal to him in the bingo book, so Asuma with backup could pose a problem, like we did at Scorch Canyon. Sum shouted at Asuma as the 2 jonin charged, the massive wolf staying with the genin as extra security. It didn't take long for Zabuza to recognize that the current fight wasn't one he'd win. He was still tired from being on the run for so long, and now the two Jonin were able to back each other up. Sending a silent signal to Haku, Zabuza was getting ready for the samban to the neck when he heard his partner cry out in pain. Damn it! Zabuza snarled, sending out a tidal wave that bought him just enough room to leap to where Haku was, swinging his blade as he beheaded what looked like a tiger made of ink, rushing the mauled Haku out. He'd ensure Haku recovered, then take this group down on his terms. Frowning, Guy observed his team as the three worked to take down their targets on the latest bandit elimination mission. On past missions of this type, the three had decent teamwork where Niji took charge, calling out orders on where various bandits were or were going, taking full advantage of his Byakugan as he waited to the center of it all, drawing the most attackers. Tenten would have been rapidly circling the outside, throwing her kunai, and using her weapons to make sure no bandits escaped the camp, while Lee would bounce from opponent to opponent, breaking those who faced him and hurting the rest towards Niji. It was a well-oiled machine where the teamwork worked flawlessly. Even when the team wasn't on the best terms, there was at least a degree of respect there for the most part. But now they each focused on their own actions. Tenten didn't seem as comfortable working with Lee, and if both of them weren't following his orders to the letter, Niji's teamwork became non-existent. The bandits were still getting taken out, but the teamwork that Konoha prided itself on wasn't there anymore. And Guy wasn't sure what to do about it. Naruto. Grunting, Naruto helped ease the bridge builder Tazuna into a chair to help avoid any more attacks. Asuma and Sum had given the order to speed things up. Naruto had been tasked with carrying the old man, while his clones had bows ready, and a clone of Sum carried Shikamaru, who still wasn't fit enough to do prolonged water walking at the speeds they needed to travel. He secure? Sum checked into the room where Naruto was laying down the old man, the civilian having passed out from the intensity of the fight and the run that followed. Yeah, he's good. Naruto nodded. Smells like a distillery, but he's good. I've got clones setting up traps and seals around the property for now. Good work, kid. Sim gave him a relieved nod before running a hand back through her hair with a sigh. Fuck, this mission went south fast. You handled yourself good out there, kid. I can't tell you how many rookies I know of from my own friggin' clan would have tried arguing, wanting to fight Zabuza for some sort of glory. He's an S-ranked missing non. Not some chump who sucks someone off to become Chunin. Naruto rolled his eyes. I'd rather not get murdered, thank you. Good. I'm going to go meet with Asuma so we can make a plan on how to handle this clusterfuck. You and the other Genin meet up. Check what's on hand and see if you have any seals that can boost their gear. This is an all-hands-on-deck scenario till I say otherwise, got it? Yes, sensei. Naruto. Alright, let's take stock of the situation. Asuma sighed as the 6 trained ninja sat at the table of the bridge builder's home, the 3 civilians all asleep. Naruto, you told Sum that you were setting up traps and seals, yes? Yeah. Naruto nodded, pulling out a map his clones had made of the area surrounding the house. I've been having my clones setting it up. I made a map of what traps are where, plus an exit key. He slid the 2 items to the pair of Jonin. The key will turn off the traps and needs chakra from whoever gets key to it to work. Naruto showed how to bond Asuma and Sum to the key so only they could let people in or out of the area surrounding the house. Good work, kid. Sum nodded, ruffling Naruto's head with a grin. This'll help keep this place secure. Would the trap stop an S-rank ninja? Sasuke frowned. I know your seals are good, Naruto, but this isn't some genin or a nepotistic chunin. I didn't leave any gaps. Naruto shook his head. If there's one thing I know better than my seals or Bao, it's infiltration. You saw me pranking the ANBU for years, outrunning them for years. Nobody ever noticed me till I let them, remember? There are enough traps that he won't be able to get through without setting them off. Could he force his way through? Yes. But it would be messy and loud. It would draw attention and give us time to fight back. He already saw that he was outmatched in a straight fight against Asuma and Sum sensei. His best shot is assassination, right? He looked at the 2 Jonin who nodded with a frown. Yes, but unfortunately that's his best field. Asuma tossed his team a bingo book so they could read Zabuza's entry. Naruto, could you make some scrolls that can store clones for an indefinite period? I could probably make some that could hold a clone for a day. 2 tops. Naruto shook his head. Why? Currently we need to guard both Tazuna and his family. Asuma explained. Sum and I will go with Tazuna to the bridge each day and take 2 of you a day to help guard and oversee some training at the same time. The other 2 will stay here and guard them, escorting them out as needed, since I'm quite sure Naruto has another key somewhere or could make one. So you want us to have those clones on hand to help in case Zabuza shows up. Gives us time to get the civilians back, paw the traps, and would draw enough attention for the real you to get over to the fight. Sasuke sums up with a nod. Exactly. Asuma nods before frowning. And I have an extra job for you, Naruto. Or your clones at any rate. Me? Naruto blinked in surprise, the other genin doing the same. Yes, you. Sum nodded. Picking up where Asuma left off, you can make solid clones despite being a genin and have good stealth and ranged weapons training. Currently this city is drying. There's no hope, which means people aren't going to be very cooperative. I want your clones to go out into the woods beyond the village to hunt and pick medical herbs. Don't overharvest, but bringing those back to town will help give these people some hope. I do not believe it would be that easy to change the world view of a defeated city. Sai protested the idea. Kid, You'd be amazed how much brighter the world looks when you get your first full meal and medicine in who knows how long. Asuma shook his head. Sometimes you just need that little spark to start something bigger. On it, Asuma-sensei. Naruto nodded, making a handful of shadow clones that grabbed some ceiling scrolls and set off. I'll have them each go to different areas so it's more spread out. Good man. Asuma nodded. This is a serious mission now, and one we can't afford to leave. Gato is someone who would gladly work with Konoha's enemies, and it could end up making Wave a staging ground for attacks on our village if we just leave things be. Getting word back to Konoha will be tricky now as well. I'll try, but it's highly likely that backup won't be coming. So, who's going to the bridge tomorrow? Sasuke asked with a frown. Shikamaru and Sai will be. Asuma decided. Sasuke, I know you copied the basics of each elemental transformation from me. When I want you to help the others get some elemental transformation down. Naruto, you're to keep seal upgrading everyone's gear and making things like explosive seals. Sai, have your ink creatures do patrols. Shikamaru, you still need to work on your reserves. Shikamaru's groan went ignored. Zabuza, frowning. Zabuza finished washing out Haku's wounds, ink from that tiger having gotten inside the lacerations. Root. Zabuza frowned as he thought back to the genin he'd observed. The one with the ink brushes, and who had to have created the ink tiger that mauled Haku, had screamed of the infamous Root organization of Konoha. An organization that was, supposedly, disbanded years ago. That doesn't matter. Zabuza shook his head as he looked about the new bulk hole he'd stashed Haku in to recover. It was a simple matter to have a pair of water clones, one henge to look like Haku, be holed up in their old safe house to distract Gato, little pissant. Zabuza scowled, remembering the feedback from his clones who dealt with the annoying midget. How Gato had threatened to just turn them in for the bounty rather than paying him, not seeming to care about the notion of Konoha getting involved. I need to get this done fast. Zabuza scowled, sealing Kubikuri Hocho away and leaving a clone to watch over Haku. He needed the bridge builder dead, but first he needed Haku back in fighting shape. Looking in the mirror, he took off his bandages and put in some fake teeth atop his own to hide their shark-like edges, baggy clothes to hide his physique, and a bit of carefully applied makeup to alter his features somewhat. Lastly, a seal applied to help conceal his chakra. That'll work. Zabuza nodded, stepping out with just a kunai for protection for now. He was the assassin of the Seven Swordsmen, but nobody ever took the chance to stop and think about how a giant man with a zanbato would go unnoticed. There should be a field of medical herbs to the south. Zabuza nodded, moving careful to avoid seeming like a shinobi. Speed was important, but precision even more so. Anko, I don't know what I've been told. Anko barked at her three genin as she continued to work them into the dirt. So far the three hadn't even taken so much as a single D-rank mission, having focused the entirety of their time on getting them up to snuff rather than doing basic chores. Choji had, thankfully, been the easiest to work with. Without easy access to Shikamaru to encourage bad lazy habits, the boy had listened to her. The FAC that she told his parents and Inos about what she was doing probably helped, as the actual shinobi would be on her side about this. Currently Choji was only panting slightly, and she felt he was actually ready to try a basic C rank, if it weren't for his teammates. Ino had apparently tried whining to her parents after the first few days and gotten a lecture similar to what Anko had given her. Thankfully their lecture, plus some manipulation from the girl's father, helped light a fire under the girl's ass. That the fire was to get strong and get thick for Sasuke-kun made her want to hurl, but she'd take what she could get for now and work on that fanderling once the girl wasn't liable to die the second that they set foot out of the village. Sakura, on the other hand, didn't have any shinobi relatives to back up Hanko's words and didn't see instant results on her figure by not dieting, so she was being stubborn. Unfortunately for the Pinkette, Anko gave absolutely zero fucks and kept making the girl train till she dropped. I can't hear you, maggots. Anko shouted out when the trio didn't answer back. I don't know what I've been told. The three got up, some louder than others. I can't hear you. Anko barked. I don't know what I've been told. The trio managed to shout this time as Anko cackled. Damn right you don't. She gave a double clap to let the trio know to take one more cool-down walking lap before falling back in. The trio slumped to relief. The leaves they'd been forced to stick all over their body for chakra training while they ran falling to the ground limply. Alright you three. Once you're done with that cool-down lap, I'm going to let you go early. Anko nodded. I'm going to look for a mission to take you three on. The three perked up. So you think we're ready? Ino looked hopeful. It's a test to see if you are. Anko shook her head. So I'm going to try and find an easy one that I can easily handle if things go south. And no, Sakura, that does not mean you can half-ass this and expect me to do the work for you. These three needed a lot of work, but Anko was damn well determined. Zabuza, steps carefully placed to make the sound a normal civilian would make rather than the silent steps of a killer. Zabuza riffled through his satchel full of medical herbs, fruits, and nuts. He'd been out for a few hours and had noticed signs of someone else doing the same. Plucked plants, splattered blood from something or someone getting killed, and the lingering presence of chakra in the air from someone doing jutsu. The only question he had was if it was from the Konoha group or someone else. He wasn't aware of any other shinobi in the area, but there were others with access to chakra. Bounty hunters and even the occasional ronin or monk. stepping into a clearing where he hoped to find some herbs to fight infection. Not liking the thought of ink in Haku's bloodstream, he saw the blonde archer brat, or a clone at least. His skills as a sensor were something he'd spent years refining to better his silent killing methods while in the hidden mist, and he'd gotten to the point that he could tell a clone from a regular shinobi with ease. The solid clone, a surprising feat for a genin, was busy dressing and harvesting a deer, probably the source of the blood he'd seen earlier. Quite the catch, young hunter. Zabuza smiled, putting on a friendly and approaching air, the kid giving him a bashful grin, having clearly heard his footsteps. Thanks. The blonde smiled at him, not an ounce of suspicion in his eyes. Or if there was, it was better hidden than Zabuza was used to seeing, although I have to ask what a kid is doing out here alone. Zabuza put on a concerned mask. Killing a clone wouldn't do anything to help his mission, and would just put his enemies more on edge. It did present an opportunity to gather intel though. I hear there's a bandit king who took over the only village in the area. Are you trying to flee, Wave? I'm going to save it. The kid's expression was determined, Zabuza able to see an iron will at this genin's core. You seem a little young to be a war hero, kid. Zabuza frowned, still not a fan of how young genin were sent out to kill and die. He was a monster himself, but that was out of necessity. His emotions deadened out of necessity. His village was wasting both lives and resources with their old system of having graduates fight to the death for the right to a headband. Years of effort and training that had been spent on the dead wasted. So, he trained on his own in secret, picked the most foul graduating class he could, and slaughtered them all to prove a point. And he'd gotten the change he'd wanted. He'd climbed the ranks by throwing himself into training, using brutal methods to prove his points until he'd been seen as the one of the Mist's strongest. One of the Mist's most ruthless. He saw what he wanted changed and made a point to get things changed. Eventually though, Mist and its Kage reached a new level of problematic. Bloodline purges would do nothing but serve to weaken the village, threatening its very existence. His coup had been to stop that before the village could be lost completely. It was the first time his methods had failed him, as he'd been forced to flee in disgrace. Finding Haku had been the one benefit of this, an apprentice he could train to carry on his work. A legacy to leave behind. Mist was lost, and there was no stopping that. Even if those rebels won, their forces were too small to still be counted as a major village at the end. Same was true for the bloodline purgers. He needed this payday to ensure his new dream would succeed. Quite the promised kid. Zabuza shook his head. Sounds like a dangerous goal. I've been avoiding Gato and Wave for a reason. I'm not alone. The kid looked determined, even as he finished getting out the meat from the deer along with the hide, sealing those and the waste away separately. So, you've got more hunters with you? Zabuza continued to play dumb, noting the clone wasn't wearing a headband. Probably avoiding reflective metals if they were out hunting, something like that. The kid gave him a cheeky grin, not being as easy to pry intel from as he'd hoped. But did you need something? Got a friend who hurt himself. I'm gathering some herbs so that his injury doesn't get infected. Zabuza rolled his eyes, feigning exasperation. I swear that idiot is more danger-prone than a shinobi. The kid snorted bemused, marking one of the rare few times someone found him funny. Well, I saw some fireroot by the river over there. The kid pointed with the knife he'd been using to carve up the deer before working on cleaning the blade. I got some, but there's still plenty. Thanks, kid. Zabuza nodded, giving a friendly grin as the kid set off. Stay safe out there. As the kid left, Zabuza made sure to carefully keep up his mask, not wanting to let it slip now that he knew someone else was in the area. Still, the fact that the kid was out collecting meat, leather, and medicinal herbs. He guessed they were trying to bolster the spirits of the people in Wave. It was a good plan to fight against Gato's methods, especially since Gato would be more careful about having his thugs try anything violent in town until the Konoha shinobi were dead. And if the kid was working to fix things at the town, one day's worth of hunting wouldn't be anywhere near enough. Looks like he'd be out hunting while Haku recovered then. Frowning, Guy looked back through the mission reports he'd filed on the last dozen missions he'd taken with his team. The issues with them were steadily growing worse, and he was desperate for a solution. Niji was even more waspish than before. Lee was running himself ragged trying to get Tenten's acknowledgement, and the markswoman of the group herself was distancing herself more and more. He'd even learned that she was often being seen training with the Uzumaki boy. I suppose that's what she meant by costing someone their slot. He mused aloud with a frown, even as he remembered what had been revealed about the academy, how its teachers were refusing to pointedly teach. And it wasn't like he demanded they fail the Uzumaki kid. He just requested that they have graduate regardless of the lack of jutsu issue, that he'd be requesting the Hokage place the boy on his team. That wasn't something Lee could control, and Jonin were allowed to make requests on who was in their teams. So how do I fix this? Guy frowned, trying to recapture the spark of a well-oiled machine his team had been before. Especially as the Chunin exams were coming up, a competition he'd already given his word to the three that they'd be entered into. Wait, I got it. Guy beamed happily as an idea struck him like a bolt of lightning. Putting away the reports from the old missions, Guy rushed over to the mission selection office, entering to browse what was available. This is perfect. Guy grinned as he found one that hadn't been taken yet. It was a week-long escort mission, seeing a traveling merchant to the border of the land of Waterfalls to the north, where they'd swap this merchant band over to a team from Waterfall. collecting the team they'd be escorting back to Konoha. It was long enough that the group couldn't just get done and go home like a basic bandit elimination job. And with his planned addendum, it should fix everything. He'd put Lee in charge of the three during the mission. Neji would learn how to take orders from his fellows and that he didn't always have to be the one giving out commands. Tenten would see that Lee deserved his position on both their team and the Shinobi Corp. Lee would get confidence in his ability as a shinobi and an eventual ranked member of the Corp. This is perfect. Guy quickly filled out the forms so his team would be able to go on the mission first thing come morning. He couldn't see how this could go wrong. Guy, this was not perfect. Things had started rocky, as he had expected them to. Lee had been excited, throwing his hands up with a yash, and a declaration that if he could not lead his team properly then he would do 100 laps around Konoha upon their return. Tenten had a stoic blank expression that was clearly hiding displeasure, and likely more thoughts of nepotism. Neji had just been scowling, shooting furious looks between Lee and himself, instead of Neji and Tenten seeing Lee doing his best at efficiently leading his team, and thereby gaining respect for their comrade. Things had only deteriorated further from there. Lee was trying his best, but it seemed that with trying to get Lee's taijutsu skill up to par, he neglected his pupil's tactical ability. Lee knew where he'd at least be useful, and he knew enough about taijutsu to place Neji. But his knowledge of where Tenten would best be placed was clearly lacking. He started by having her take point, saying if she had good eyes from her weapons training then she could scout ahead. Not realizing that Tenten worked best at accuracy over certain distances, and would have been better at the back to cover them, while Neji took point with his Byakugan for reconnaissance. He could tell Lee consistently wanted to charge after any hint of a threat to fight them himself, leading the others to guard the caravan. Not processing that as temporary team leader he needed to stay and coordinate. For the past 3 days things had been growing more tense rather than less as he'd hoped. The second they got to the border village and deposited the group they'd escorted, their return group not set to arrive till the next day, Neji and Tenten spread out through the village to get away from Lee. Maybe I should have had them take turns being in charge of D ranks or war games against other teams. Guy slumped, his brilliant plan proving to be far less brilliant than he'd hoped. Haku, sitting up in bed, Haku grimaced as he felt his healing wounds protest. Zabuza's knowledge of healing jutsu was minimal at best, so they were mostly having to get by on medicinal herbs, and those limited medical jutsu to get Haku back to fighting shape. Easy, Haku. Zabuza's expression was stern. Haku knew it was not out of concern, he was still only a tool. If anything, it would just be worry about Haku making his injuries worse when he still had use for this current mission. Those are already going to scar. The last thing we need right now is them opening up again. Yes, Zabuza-sama. Haku bowed his head in deference to his savior, sipping at the warm broth filled with meat and herbs to help his recovery. I should be back to fighting strength by the end of the week. Good. Zabuza nodded, sharpening Kubikuri Hocho as they spoke. I don't see any signs from the kid that the Konoha Nin are accelerating their plans, so this should work well. Yes, Naruto Uzumaki, the genin that Zabuza-sama had informed him of. Over the past 4 days, Zabuza had been going out to gather herbs and medicine, accidentally running into Naruto while gathering food and such each time. Or a clone at any rate. Zabuza-sama had, at first, stated it was just an attempt to gather information. Then he'd bandied out the idea of trying to take the kid with them. That Naruto Uzumaki could be of use for the dreams Zabuza-sama had told him of. But Haku could tell that, even if Zabuza-sama refused to admit it to himself, that the demon of the bloody mist was growing attached to the enemy genin. Zabuza had spoken well of the determination he saw in the blonde genin. Of the potential given what he saw in that first fight. Haku knew Zabuza wished to take the foreign genin with them once the bridge builder was dead, and Haku would do all he could to ensure this happened. Zabuza-sama deserved more companion than a simple discardable tool. Naruto, I'm back. Naruto stretched with a yawn as he entered the house, dropped off the meat and herbs at the usual spots. Good work, Squirt. Some grinned at him, ruffling his hair even as he failed at stopping her. Any signs of Zabuza or their accomplice? Asuma looked over from where he was helping the others with a chakra control exercise. None. Naruto frowned, seen a couple wandering merchants. A few hunters. Even some of Gato's thugs that I dealt with. He grimaced, still not fully comfortable with killing bandits and other scum even if he knew it was the best course of action. He gave Sum an appreciative nod when she squeezed his shoulder comfortingly. Still, best be cautious. Asuma frowned, stroking his beard in contemplation. Who knows if we took out his accomplice or if he has others. Not to mention Zabuza himself is no slouch. Before Naruto, or any of the others, could respond they were cut off by Inari, the grandson of their client who not said a word to them the entire time they'd been in Wave. Keeping any interactions to scowls or huffs. Just shut up already. Inari snapped, fists balled as he yelled at them. Why do you even bother when Gato's just going to kill you anyway? Gato's no match for a shinobi kid. Asuma shook his head. His guard Zabuza? That's a threat, but one we already sent running. We've got this handled. Yeah, right. Inari was near spitting now. No matter how hard you train, or what big claims you make, you're still no match for Gato's men. The weak only end up getting killed. You're just going to make us suffer more from Gato. You stupid ninja from your pampered village. I bet you haven't had to suffer or struggle a day in your entire life. Any further ranting from Inari was cut off as by the sound of the wood table splintering under Naruto's grip, and the glass in Sasuke's hands shattering. Don't know about suffering? Naruto felt burning rage bubbling up in his gut. Sasuke was breathing heavily, working to control his own temper even as his Sharingan flickered on and off. He felt some trying to calm him down, but his blood was boiling in his ears. Do you have a mother? Naruto's tone was cold as he stared down at a now shaking Inari. Do you have a grandfather? Why you know I do, stupid. Inari tried to get his courage back before Naruto slapped a palm down hard on the table. Then you still have more than Sasuke. More than me. Naruto snarled. He had to watch as his family were killed in front of him. I lost mine the day I was born. I have been beaten. I have been robbed. I have been betrayed. But I've kept going. I didn't curl up and start whining like you. Naruto felt his breasts becoming ragged, his fury rising up far faster than it should have. Needed to get away from this. He stormed out of the house before the others could stop him, slipping through the traps as he ran into the dark woods. He needed to get away. Naruto. Tsum shot to her feet to give chase once she processed what had just happened, only stopping when Asuma put a hand on her shoulder. You won't catch him, Tsum. Asuma scowled. By the time you got the key to get past the traps, he'd have a solid lead. Given his skill at stealth and how much of the forest he's learned, then none of us would find him until he's ready to be found. Give him a bit to cool off, then go. As he spoke, she felt him subtly tapping a coded message on her shoulder, saw eyes starting to turn red. QB might have been trying to break through. I think he's trying to calm down safely. Follow and observe carefully. Fine. She scowled, not wanting to let the boy who was essentially her second son suffer this alone. Leaving the still furious, but also now confused, Sasuke to be helped by his team. Tsum ran upstairs to get the key to get past the traps, noting Inari was being comforted and chastised by his mother as she ran out into the night after her boy. Zabuza, the hell? Zabuza looked about the ruined clearing in confusion, wanting to find some wild boar to make one of Haku's favorite dishes. The tracks he'd been following led here, but there was no sign of the trail left. He saw deep furrows dug into the ground, trees shattered, rocks smashed. Added to that, the area looked scorched, for lack of a better word. But clearly not by fire. There was no soot nor smell of smoke. At the center of it all, though, was Naruto. The blonde, and he could tell this was the true genin, was laying passed out in the clearing. Hey, kid! Zabuza carefully shook the genin awake. Kid, you shouldn't be sleeping out here. He was carefully keeping track of what was around him as he woke the genin up, but sensed no trace of the kid's team or sensei. Wah! Naruto sat up, rubbing his eyes wearily. Where? As the kid spoke, he blinked rapidly, eyes regaining focus and clarity. Fuck, some sensei's gonna kill me. Naruto groaned, slamming his head back against a tree. Oh? Zabuza raised an eyebrow, wondering if he'd get some useful new intel. Got into an argument with someone last night. Naruto admitted, seeming tense even as he spoke. Zabuza figured the kid was trying to keep certain bits private but wanted someone safe to vent to. Yeah, that happens when you get people together. They argue. Zabuza shrugged. It's human nature to fight. To disagree, but people work together regardless. Naruto pushed back, the kid still having a spark of hope in him. The shinobi world was a cruel one to those who still had that spark. Maybe. Zabuza shrugged, avoiding a new argument. So you came out here to cool off? Yeah. Naruto kicked the dirt, twirling a stick between his fingers. A nervous tick possibly. He noticed how high energy the kid was. You should get back to them, kid. Zabuza shook his head. They're probably worried and you need to rest somewhere that's not half rubble. I know. Naruto slumped, clearly dreading the coming conversation. Good. Head back safely. Ya hear me, brat? Zabuza gave a good-natured grin as he got up, leaving the kid to get up and head back. He still had to find that boar after all. With Haku recovered, this was to give them energy and vigor. Tonight they made their move. As he left, he never noticed a dark-haired kunoichi observing him unseen from the trees. Naruto. It was the explosion that woke him first. The distinctive blast from one of the outer traps he designed to be as loud as possible. An extra bit of alarm to alert anyone in the house. Throwing himself from the bed he'd been resting in, Naruto tore down the stairs to the first floor. More and more traps going off with each and every step. What's going on? Tsunami was in the kitchen, clutching Inari nervously as the explosions continued sounding off along with the sound of screams. Gato's thugs are making their move, it seems. Naruto scowled as yet another explosion sounded off. Making a quick hand seal, Naruto formed a group of 6 clones. One picked up a protesting Inari, a hand covering the kid's mouth to keep him quiet, while another picked up Tsunami bridal style as the woman turned scarlet. The other 2 clones readied weapons, 2 drawing swords and 2 knocking arrows to bows. My clones will use the trap key to sneak you out the back. Naruto started unsealing his quivers. They'll get you somewhere safe in town and hide you there. They'll stick around to protect you. Tsunami started to speak up in confusion, only for the 6 clones to take off, carrying the 2 civilians out the back, the opposite direction of the sound of traps being triggered. Running back upstairs, Naruto looked out the window where he could see a group of thugs trying to get through the traps. The more experienced, and likely higher-ranked, thugs thugs were sending those deemed expendable forward, working to brute force a path through the traps. Drawing back an arrow, Naruto let out a slow, steady breath, and loosed the whistling death toward its target. He had vermin to kill, and after all he'd seen in Wave, all the suffering he'd seen these men had wrought, he didn't even bat an eye as the first arrow sunk home, hitting cleanly into the eye socket of the first bastard he laid his gaze on. Haku. Staying silent, Haku leapt over another ink beast, a thrown ice kunai making the jutsu dissolve. While recovering, he'd had time to study the ink Zabuza-sama had managed to draw from his wounds, confirming that the creation required a very specific structure of ingredients to be of use. Adding in enough outside reagents that aren't accounted for, and the jutsu can fall apart, such as an unstable Haitan kunai watering down the mixture. What the hell, Sai? The Uchiha scowled, swinging his swords in a windmill blur of motion, yet still seemingly able to keep track of each blade and everything around him, even aware of what was going on behind his back somehow. If it were not for the distinct red eyes and Tomo, he would have thought his opponent a Hyuga. It would seem during our last encounter they acquired enough of my ink to study. The now-named Sai spoke emotionlessly, not unlike how Haku often spoke when not trying to fool those Zabuza-sama wished him to. Damn it all. The third genin might have done more than just curse if he weren't already laying paralyzed on the ground. The genin had been almost insultingly weaker than Haku had expected and had easily fallen to the Senban to the correct points to incapacitate. The weak link's fall had forced his teammates to move into a position to protect him. The two jonin busy fighting Zabuza, who had enough water on hand from the rushing currents below the bridge to use his jutsu with ease. It would be easier if he just surrendered. Haku kept his voice level as he formed more ice Senban between his fingers. I would rather not have to kill you. Their target was just the old bridge builder. Just as that man's life was the only thing keeping these Konoha shinobi here. If they surrendered, then it would be the easiest. Not to mention Haku was sure Zabuza would simply kill Gato the moment the vile worm paid them. He'd rarely seen a civilian earn disgust to the level of hatred Zabuza showed to the shipping tycoon. But until that occurred, or perhaps if would be more apt, Haku would keep his silence. Rather than surrendering, the Uchiha spat a fireball Haku's way. Rude. Remember, unto the next life I gave you a chance to surrender. Haku focused his chakra, forming his most dangerous jutsu. The demonic ice mirrors, rushing from mirror to mirror. Haku hurled his Senban at the two still standing genin, noting that Sai was the more tempting target of the two with the Uchiha's awareness of his surroundings. For Zabuza-sama, Zabuza, and there goes genin number 2. Zabuza grunted as he worked to fight off both the Inazaka and her wolf. Sarutobi was on the ground out of the fight from the injuries Zabuza had given him at the start of the fight when the smoking shinobi had intercepted the attack meant for the bridge builder, barely getting there in time. You bastard! Inazaka, sim if what the kid had said was correct, snarled as she and her wolf worked together to try and take him down. Technically true. Zabuza snorted, wanting the feral woman riled up to be more open to make mistakes. If he'd have any chance of taking Naruto with him after this clusterfuck, then he'd have to avoid killing the other Konoha nin. Something told him the kid wouldn't be very cooperative with someone who'd killed his sensei or friends. Man-beast clone. Sim did another Inazaka jutsu as her wolf took an appearance identical to her own, their strikes coming faster and faster as he worked to ward off the two. The damned wolf alone was more of a threat than the demon brothers and many other shinobi he'd faced. Summoning some more water clones, Zabuza worked to deal with the troublesome woman so he could give chase to the clones that had rushed off with the bridge builder, silently impressed with their plan of using sealed and stored solid clones for a task like that. Still, there was something going on in her eyes that he didn't like. A look that spoke of her piecing together a puzzle, and it had his hackles raised. Grimacing, he continued to press onward, hearing the sound of Haku's battle picking up intensity. Things were never easy. Naruto, I can't leave you alone for 5 fucking minutes, can I? Naruto grumbled as he landed, sliding to a stop over the prone forms of Sai and Shikamaru. Naruto? Sasuke's swords were a blur as he noted the archer's arrival, the one and only. Naruto scowled as he studied the ice mirrors they were facing. Gato's thugs went after Tsunami and Inari. My clones had to sneak them out the back, and you're sure none followed them? Sasuke was all business as the shining blades cut yet another volley of ice Saban from the air, didn't leave any alive too. Naruto's tone was cold as the ice that surrounded them as Sasuke grunted in affirmation. Those working for you? He knew it was their first real test outside of spars. The twin blades, each shining like a mirror, were constantly moving. With the Sharingan's perception abilities, it allowed Sasuke to keep track of the rapidly moving blades and intercept projectiles heading his way, as well as looking into the reflection on the metal. With the seals, the metal would never tarnish or grime over, always staying sharp, strong, and reflective to let Sasuke see and even cast Sharingan Genjutsu on those behind him through the reflection, like a charm. Sasuke smirked, lashing out with a blade to cut the Senban that was flying at his back. But Naruto was noting his friend was starting to slow. He had no idea how long the sword-wielding Uchiha had been using his Sharingan, or how much chakra he still had left to keep this going. Seeing a blur of motion, Naruto lashed out with his sword as the Senban that his blade hit vanished. What? Their masked opponent in the mirror staggered a bit from losing connection to the ice, the Senban seemingly tied to the mirrors the person was hiding in. That's what your sword does. Sasuke's eye twitches, the Uchiha having been on him for a while to explain what this katana was able to do with the seals Naruto had put onto the blade. Keeping his friends guessing had been a lot of fun while it had lasted. Sealing away the weapons of his opponents was the perfect way to create an opening. It would seem I can no longer hold back. The ice user's tone turned frigid as they seemed to appear in every mirror. Metal Saban held between each finger, as they moved faster than anything Naruto had ever seen before. Flitting from mirror to mirror as they hurled Saban as fast as possible. He wasn't able to keep up with the speed of it all. He let out a cry as the needles pierces his skin, Sasuke dropping to a knee as well as the onslaught continued. There. The ice user eventually stopped as Naruto was struggling to get back on his feet. Sasuke just as paralyzed as Sai and Shikamaru, who'd blacked out by this point. Now you can no longer aid your sensei in stopping Zabuza-sama. The ice user was on their knees, shaking from chakra exhaustion as the mirrors cracked apart all around them, falling to the ground uselessly. Get it over with. Sasuke snarled, the Uchiha hating being defeated even if the Ravenet still had his pride. There is no reason for you to die. The ice user's voice was calm even if they were still panting. Our only concern is the life of our target. You were tasked to guard them, but we do not have to kill you to attain this objective. What? Naruto blinked in confusion, sharing a glance with Sasuke even as the sound of the fighting from the Jonin and the dissipating mist was fading. I said there is no need. The ice user's emotionless tone was cut off. No. A voice he recognized as Zabuza's filled the air, along with the sound of tearing flesh. Hot blood splattered across Naruto's face as he stared at the stone spike piercing through the missing nin's chest, an attack that would have hit Naruto, Sasuke, the ice users and the others if the man hadn't intercepted it. Zabuza-sama. The ice user gasped, trying to catch the now falling man. Really? That's all it took? A new voice Naruto didn't recognize laughed as the fog at the end of the bridge cleared to show a little man surrounded by an army of thugs and one terrified-looking ninja with a slashed IWA headband. Probably a weaker and cheaper shinobi kept on retainer just in case. I expected it to take a lot more to kill you, Zabuza. Oh well, an easy bounty is an easy bounty. As the midget laughed, Naruto stared in shock at the missing Nan who was using the massive Zanbato to stay upright. The bandages were falling from the man's face as Naruto saw more and more details. Familiar features. Hey kid. The voice of the friend he made out in the woods reached his ears as Naruto felt his gut growing cold. No. Naruto was hyperventilating even as he forced himself through the pain to try and help the ice user in holding up this man. A man he'd spoken with, who'd helped him. Not much of a way to go, huh? Zabuza coughed weakly, blood coming from his lips. The man had seemed utterly terrifying when Naruto helped save Asuma from him in their first meeting. Now he just seemed tired, drained from everything. No, Zabuza-sama, you can still survive this. The ice user was in full-on denial even as Zabuza's lifeblood continued to drip out. We both know I can't Haku. Zabuza coughed before turning to Naruto. Haku is a good kid. You both are. Look after each other. As Zabuza gave his dying wish, the man's body collapsed like his strings were cut, hand falling off the legendary sword he wielded, leaving just Naruto's hand on it. And as Gato continued to laugh and jeer, Naruto saw red, a crimson glow forming atop his skin. Gato, ha! I think the little baby ninja's gonna cry. Gato sneered as he saw the two brats holding up the dying Zabuza. I mean really, all that hype and he goes out like a little bit. Gato felt his words dying in his throat with a strangled gurgle as Gato's body fell and a horrible oppressive weight filled the air. The blonde brat looked up, hands still clutching Zabuza's sword and a sickly orange glow forming around the little shit. Kill him already. Gato snapped, hating how the brat unnerved him enough to stutter. I want him. He was cut off by hot blood filling his mouth and running his suit. In a blink the kid had gone from Zabuza's corpse to being by Gato's side, the massive cleaver sword having cut his IWA nukenin that had fired the killing jutsu in half starting from the groin and going up. He couldn't help throwing up the expensive food in his stomach as he looked at the panting blood-soaked blonde. From a torn pouch on the ninja's waist leaves were drifting out in the wake of his charge, smoldering from the orange aura surrounding the killer. When said killer threw his head back and let out a fucking roar that parted the Kami-damned clouds, he officially pissed himself. His feet felt like they were sunk in cement, his knees knocking together, as the monster he'd unintentionally unleashed carved a bloody path through his men, roaring like a beast all the while. The demon kept moving faster than he could keep track of. He only got glimpses of them when they were stopped amongst the carnage. More and more of Gato's army was being slaughtered by the moment, and all he could do was watch in horrified silence. Screams filled the air along with the limbs, blood, and guts of those who did the screaming, while his ears were assaulted by the echoing screams, the pleas for mercy. His nose was filled with the stench of blood, of piss, of shit, and the acrid smell of burning leaves. He'd brought a few hundred men with him, and they were being slaughtered by a teenager. Blood pooling and running off the side of the half-finished bridge and into the white-capped current's bellow. Gato stared at the blonde who turned toward him, breasts ragged and eyes crimson, the slitted pupils staring into his soul. Despite the veritable sea of blood around them, there wasn't a drop on the shinobi who'd been butchering non-stop. No bloodstains, no scattered viscera, no nothing. Just that horrifying glow. It was only after processing all these details that Gato realized that the demon pretending to be a human wasn't slaughtering anyone else anymore, that there wasn't anyone else to slaughter. Nobody except for himself. Letting out a strangled noise, Gato fell on his ass in the sea of blood, trying to scramble away from the horrible blonde ninja who started slowly making his way over. The massive sword Zabuza had always carried scraping along the ground behind him. Please. Gato gasped as the feral-looking ninja caught up to his desperate scrambling. Please do anything. I beg you. Please, I'll give you any key dash. His words turned into a scream of agony as the massive sword was stabbed downward, severing one of his legs just below the hip. Unlike the others though, the monster held the sword there, and Gato soon realized why. The horrible orange glow filling the air with a new smell, that of burned meat, as the wound was seared closed. The blonde roared again. The sound not that much louder than what a normal human should be able to do, but it felt like he was trying to stand before a hurricane. The wind pressure pushed him against the ground as the beast screamed at him. His scream as the next limb got the same treatment as the first got stolen by that wind. Please. Gato sobbed, crying out till his throat was raw as the demon cut off his third limb. All he had left was a single arm he was desperately using to try and drag himself to safety. Please don't kill me, die. The blood-curdling pressure the blonde beast exuded made him feel like his heart was about to stop. His eyes rolling up to his head from the stress and blood loss as the abomination cut off his final arm. Naruto, rage. It was the only thing he could feel as he stomped through the river of blood he had spilt, the crimson liquid failing to touch him. Fear. It was the only scent he could detect in the air, even as the wind chakra from his roars split the clouds. Iron. That was all he could taste. Zabuza's blood still covering his face from when his friend had sacrificed himself. Zabuza. His friend's dead body is the only thing he could see even as he carved a bloody path through his killers. The Kubikuri Hocho living up to its legend. Laughter. All he could hear was a mad, gleeful cackling, urging him to keep going. To keep killing. To never stop the slaughter. Yes. He had to keep it up. These bastards killed his friend. He couldn't stop till every last one of them was dead. Yuto. But weren't they all dead? Naruto panted as he looked around the sea of broken and chopped bodies. The blood from the corpses boiling and bubbling away as it met the orange glow around him. Wait, orange glow? Why was he glowing? Naruto. Hearing Tsume's voice, Naruto's head looked up at the woman who'd been like a mother to him. Feeling his body swaying. His wrath trying to fade away and swell all at once. Feeling Kubikuri Hocho slip from his fingers, Naruto clutched his head, falling to his knees as he screamed. The sound was echoing back from within his own skull, the echoed cry far louder, far more primal, far more bloodthirsty. The voice in his head was screaming something, he was sure of that much at least, but he couldn't make any of it out. This was the Kyuubi, it had to be, and he refused to let that monster win. Not when it was telling him to pick the sword back up and run his sensei through. I won't. Naruto grit out, punching the ground hard as he worked to force the bubbling burning Kyuubi chakra back into the seal. Naruto, you can do this. Submerged, his sensei getting as close as she could do to the Kyuubi chakra surrounding him. Don't let the fox win, alright. Naruto looked some sensei in the eye, seeing his own eyes reflected back from within hers, seeing the crimson glowing gaze slowly fading into a calm blue. Just before his energy left, and he collapsed into his teacher's arms. Sarutobi, what was all that? Sasuke's voice was horrified as they looked out over the carnage Naruto had caused. Shikamaru and Sai were thankfully unconscious at the moment. That, Sasuke, was what I'd suggested you ask Naruto about yourself when we finished this mission. Asuma pulled out one of his smokes, lighting it up to try and get rid of the stress that was draining him right now. Pulling out one last seal that contained a Naruto clone, he brought them out. The issue is dealt with. Bring Tazuna and his family back here. He ordered the clone, who saluted before popping to carry the message to the other still active clones. Naruto's Sasuke grit out from the pain of the Saban still embedded in his pressure points. He said that Gato's men at the house were all killed, so it would be best to fix that before we take Tazuna and his family back. Asuma nodded. Thanks for the heads up, kid. He knew civilians tended to not handle sites like that well. Nor would they handle the site on the bridge well either. Ah, shit. Asuma sighed before making a group of clones. You stay here and start getting these Saban out of Sasuke and the others. Work on helping them recover. The rest of you go find Tazuna and his family. Naruto's clones should be bringing them here. I'm going to go check on the state of their house. He trusted Tsume and Kuramaru to look after the genin and deal with that ice user if they tried anything. Not to mention keeping an eye on the now limbless Gato. Taking off running, the limited medical jutsu he knew having thankfully already closed up the wounds Zabuza gave him, Asuma made for the bridge builder's home. He wasn't prepared for the sight he found. He'd expected a couple of thugs, maybe 10 at most. With not that much carnage, instead, he saw dozens of scum dead. Many were blown apart, limbs and heads scattered and charred. Some lay on the ground, the only mark on them being the arrow shaft sticking out of eye sockets. Others still were impaled upon spiked logs or buried in pits, only the smallest parts still sticking out. Sweet Kami kid. Asuma took sight of the carnage that had happened. If this was what one Uzumaki could do when they were pissed, the stories of his clan taking most of the 3-village army that had attacked them down with them were starting to make a lot more sense. Tenten. Feeling drained and frustrated, Tenten did her best not to show it as she stood before the Hokage. She and her team were back from yet another week-long mission. The first had been a mess from start to finish, with Guy doubling down on the situation with Lee, putting the taijutsu-focused genin in charge of the mission. Lee had been enthusiastic but never bothered to try and think about what he was doing, even when it was actively going wrong. She and Niji both kept getting placed in the worst spots for their skill sets, and to make matters worse, Guy never stepped in to try and correct Lee or take away Lee's temporary leadership position. Then, on their way back, it was clear that at least some lessons had been imparted to Lee by Guy while they waited for their second group. It didn't do too much to help though, and she was rather displeased that Guy had only bothered to offer Lee any training while in the town. This mission had gone smoother, thankfully, but Niji's constant subtle and not so subtle barbs toward Lee's leadership on the prior one hadn't helped anyone, and that's what happened, sir. Guy finished reporting to the Hokage, Niji nodding along as they finished the report. It had been a simple job of taking supplies to one of Konoha's border outposts and bringing back their reports. Honestly, it was simple enough that Lee would have had a harder time messing this up than a proper escort mission. Thank you, Guy. The Hokage sighed, seeming exceptionally tired. You, Niji, and Lee are dismissed. Tenten, I would like you to stay behind for a bit. Confused, Tenten nodded even as her team left, all of them shooting baffled glances back over their shoulder as the door closed. You wish to speak to me, sir? Tenten frowned, not sure why he'd do so. Yes, this will only take a moment. The Hokage had always seemed a powerful and indomitable figure to her as she grew up, but right now, he just seemed a very tired old man. Naruto came back from his mission yesterday. I know the two of you tend to train together, and right now he could use as many supportive friends with him as he can get. Where is he? Tenten felt a pit form in her stomach at the worrisome implications. The cemetery. The Hokage's words made that pit become a lump of ice. He made a friend on his mission. They died in his arms. There are other factors, but those might be best to get from Naruto himself. I just felt it would be best to inform you so you could head to him now if you choose. I choose to. Tenten was already moving, knowing her friend needed her there right now. The Konoha cemetery was thankfully easy enough to find, even if Tenten herself thankfully had little reason to ever visit before. Naruto was easy to spot. His bright blonde hair was always eye-catching, something that only made his extreme level of skill at stealth all the more confusing. As she got closer, she noted that Naruto was standing around a fresh grave alongside his teacher. Another jonin she didn't know, a genin she recognized as Sasuke Uchiha, and one last person who she had never seen before. Affixed to the grave by a seal, she could see the massive blade of a sword, albeit one without a handle. Naruto? Tenten called out to her sparring buddy as the blonde turned toward her, his eyes hollow and bloodshot. Tenten. He rasped, thankfully not asking her to leave. It would have been awkward when she ignored such a request. I'll leave you to talk. Sum nodded. I needed to go talk to the Hokage about something. Asuma, can you escort Haku to their tests? Sure. The jonin she hadn't recognized nodded, leading the other person Tenten didn't know away. The now named Haku sent a sad mourning look at the gravestone they were surrounding before doing so. Naruto, I'll talk to you later, Naruto. Sasuke clapped a hand to his shoulder. The sole remaining Uchiha of the village having not acted any differently around him since the bridge. The other genin on Sasuke's team having not been as calm when they woke up and saw the carnage. Naruto shifted from foot to foot once it was just him and Tenten left, his training buddy glancing at the gravestone, clearly recognizing Zabuz's name scrawled in as well as the blade attached to the rock. What happened? Tenten's voice was soft as her hand rested on his shoulder, her presence more comforting than he had ever expected it to be. I'd some and I got called in as backup for the mission Sasuke's team went on. Naruto ran a hand through his hair, tearing his eyes from the stone. The job was supposed to just be escorting a bridge builder back home. They shouldn't have had to deal with anything more threatening than a couple bandits, or some wolves, but something went wrong. Tenten frowned even as she gently guided him over to a nearby bench. The client lied. Naruto scowled. His village was poor and couldn't afford a higher-ranked mission. So, he lied, claimed a C-ranked job, and apparently still expected to have a full team of jonin. Tenten winced at that. Sasuke and his team found that out after they were attacked by the demon brothers on their way to Wave. Why not just leave the client then and there? Tenten frowned in confusion. I mean, if he lied about the mission and endangered everyone? According to Tsum-sensei as well as Asuma, there were a couple reasons. Naruto admitted for one the demon brothers weren't that big of a threat, and Asuma figured most of the missing nin they'd encounter, if any more, would be at that level. Secondly, Wave is close enough to Konoha to be an effective staging ground for any foreign village wanting to move against us. Letting a mass-murdering drug tycoon take over wouldn't have been safe, especially with the Chunin exams coming up soon. Tenten winced, likely imaging what having a fresh drug empire in what was essentially the village's backyard would do for such an event. By the time we caught up to their team, they were fighting Zabuza. Naruto nodded to the gravestone as he continued his story. From the state Wave had been in, to the family they'd been protecting, to meeting and befriending the man he hadn't realized was his enemy. He spoke of the day of the battle, of seeing the bloody harvest his traps wrought, of the arrows he rained down, of the fight in the mirror, of Zabuza's sacrifice, the man's final words, and of Naruto's own butchery. How he slaughtered hundreds with the Kubikuri Hocho and mutilated Gato. Sum was the one who snapped me out of it. Naruto's hands shook as he finished his story, having not wanted to reveal so much to Tenten, but once he started, he couldn't stop. Throughout it all, she'd kept a comforting grip on his hand, never once recoiling or letting go. What happened after that? Tenten's voice was soft and gentle as she continued to hold his hand, the act helping to steady him more than he'd admit. We tried clearing out the bodies before the villagers could see what I did. Naruto grimaced, but a few saw it anyway. Thankfully it was none of the children of Wave, and those who did see the pile of corpses were all those who'd been tortured by Gato's regime, so they weren't upset once they got over their shock and revulsion at the sight. Didn't stop them from calling the place Butcher's Bridge afterward. They actually named it that. Tenten gaped. No, the official name is the Hero's Bridge. Naruto shook his head. The bridge builder said there were too many people who deserved to be honored and they were all heroes. So, he had a plaque added on with the names of our group as well as all those who died or been injured resisting Gato. The heroes of Wave. What happened to Gato? Tenten asked, her thumb rubbing the back of his hand. He was alive, just missing his limbs. So, we gave him over to the people of Wave to put on trial. Naruto shrugged easily. The trial, well, safe to say it didn't last long. Gato's holdings were put in control of the people of Wave and they're selecting a new leader now. Tenten nodded as he finished the story, glancing over at the blade of the Kubikuri Hocho attached to Zabuza's headstone. That was the last blade that was made from Zabuza's own blood. Naruto rubbed the seal on his glove where the real Kubikuri Hocho was sealed away. Haku and I agreed it should stay with him. And your new teammate, this Haku guy. He didn't want Zabuza's sword? Tenten looked confused at that. Haku told me that Zabuza tried training them in how to use it but that he never got the hang of it. Naruto shook his head. That Zabuza planned to give him the Nuabari if they ever managed to take out its wielder. So now I am the master of the Kubikuri Hocho. You'll make Zabuza proud, Naruto. I know you will. Tenten's earnest expression lifted some of the weight from his shoulders. Thank you, Tenten. He squeezed her hand back, feeling a warmth on his neck even as her own ears turned pink. But their hands stayed connected. Some, you wish to see me, sir? Some remained professional as she stood before the Hokage. Even if things had been awkward since he revealed the truth to Naruto, he was still her village leader. Yes, it's about Naruto. The old man ran a tired hand down his face as he tossed her the latest bingo book. It would seem that there were spies from other villages in Wave, watching and likely hoping your group would fail so they could swoop in and endear themselves to a location that's so close to our walls. He's been declared AC rank threat in the bingo book and even earned monikers from Stone, Cloud, and Mist. You're kidding. Some paled. Getting attention as a shinobi was a double-edged sword. Notoriety meant better jobs, but it also meant people after your head. And her blonde boy was still a rookie. The observation teams from the other villages didn't feel confident enough to attack with all 6, or perhaps 7, of you there thankfully, but they did report back to their various Kages. To Mist he is the demon of the burning leaves. To Stone, the bloody maelstrom. And to Cloud the whistling death. They're aware that he's still just a genin, and these were just bandits, for the most part. But him taking out one of Iwa's nuke Nin in a single attack as well as the sheer brutality and power he showed on that bridge has them on edge. Has them watching to see what he'll become. I'll accelerate his training. Some nodded, already determined to make sure her boy survived long enough to give her a gaggle of honorary blonde grandkids to spoil. The daimyo has heard of this too. The Hokage continued with a sigh. He's quite smug about a genin from his village already having such notoriety, and has insisted that Naruto take part in the upcoming Chunin exams, despite how little time he's been a genin. Fuck, Naruto. Giving a yell, Naruto hurled Kubikuri Hocho, the massive blade of death spinning through the air like a shuriken towards the target. Switch. Sim's barked order filled the air as Naruto instantly turned and unsealed his bow from his left-hand glove, knocking and drawing an arrow as he took aim, firing as quickly and accurately at the targets as he could. Switch. Sim's order came again as Naruto had to instantly reseal his bow and summon Kubikuri Hocho back to his right hand, a seal he'd added to the hilt of the sword letting him recall it once thrown. Massive Zanbato reclaim he started slashing at the targets Sim made go after him, the training dummies moving thanks to a Nara clan member Sim asked to help out. Ever since Zabuza's funeral a couple days before she'd been pushing him as hard as he could take and some. Preparing him to be able to use both his new weapons, as well as jutsu, and switch between them at a moment's notice. He'd even overheard her talking with Asuma Sarutobi and getting a collection of wind jutsu from the man for Naruto to train in. He could still hear a collection of his shadow clones practicing the Gale Force Palm in the distance, and he knew one of her solid clones was running Haku through drills tailored to the Haitan user as well. Sensing something behind him, Naruto kicked away the animated training dummy stuck with Kubikiri before spinning around, drawing out a kunai only to find another aimed right between his eyes. Better. Sim nodded in satisfaction as the dummies dropped like puppets once the Nara ended their jutsu, Naruto summoning back Kubikiri Hocho and resealing it in his glove. You're making excellent progress, Squirt. Thank you, Sensei. Naruto panted as he got up, his mentor having been pushing him to his limit and over it. Sim's gaze softened as she helped him up, joining him on a cool-down lap of the area. The Naruto she'd asked for help heading home. You know why I'm pushing you so hard, Naruto. Sim spoke softly as they did their cool-down lap, Kuramaru bounding alongside. Because the other villages put me in the bingo book, making the daimyo order me into the Chunin exams. Naruto sighed. The Sandaime is still positive that the Mist teams will try to kill me to steal Kubikiri Hocho. Both the Mist Rebellion and the Bloody Mist of Yugura sent emissaries demanding the blade be given over to them. Neither was very happy at being refused. Sim nodded as Naruto blinked in surprise at the old man refusing, having heard about the Hubikumo incident from when he was a kid. Think they'll just stick to attempts to kill me in the exam? Naruto frowned as they started to finish up the cooldown. Maybe. Yanbi will be watching them just in case. Sim assured him. And you'll be safe with us in the compound when not doing tests. Gotta keep an eye on you now that you've got a girlfriend. Her gentle understanding tone became teasing in an instant. Don't want grandkids from you or Kiba just yet after all. Sim-sensei. Naruto whined, flustered, stumbling in place even as his mentor and Kuramaru laughed at his embarrassment. Tenten and I aren't dating. I never said her name. Sim sing-songed as she danced away from Naruto's attempt to sweat at her. Alright, we've tormented the pup enough. Kuramaru chuckled even as the massive wolf came to his rescue. Besides, we still need to prepare for our guests set to come this evening. You're right. Sim sighed. Going straight back to business. You sure about this, kid? Positive. Naruto nodded, completely sure of his choice even if he felt terrified as hell of it. Tenten, nervously. Tenten checked her makeup for the third time in the past 10 minutes, using a small compact mirror as she and her father walked down the street towards the Inazaka house. I've never seen you fret about your appearance this much, Ten. Is there something you're not telling me? Her dad raised an eyebrow as she put her compact away, trying to quell her still tumultuous nerves by tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Dad, Naruto asked for me to come to dinner at his house with you. Meeting his family. Saying he had something important he wanted to tell me. What do you think that means? Tenten wished she had one of her kunai on hand or something to keep her fingers occupied. She never felt this nervous before, even during her graduation exam from the academy. She had a moment to see her father's eyes widen before she noted another duo heading the same direction they were. Asuma Sarutobi and one of Naruto's friends, Sasuke Uchiha. Ah, the Higurashi family. The Sarutobi Jonin nodded to them, Sasuke giving a small nod of greeting, the two thankfully seeming to not notice her surprise. I had a feeling I'd see you both here. You know why he asked us here? Sasuke narrowed his eyes in suspicion at his sensei. I have a hunch. Sarutobi shrugged. If I'm right, he'll be telling you two about some important secrets of his. Particularly the ones about why the village hates him and what you, Sasuke, saw on the bridge. Tenten froze at that. Any and all unhappy feelings about this apparently not being what she thought it was fading away. She'd been wondering about this, and if Naruto was finally ready to tell her, then it was still important. Hearing the door open, Tenten snapped out of her thoughts, moving forward again to catch up even as Naruto let in Sasuke and Sarutobi. Tenten, good to see. Naruto's greeting turned into slack-jawed, red-faced stuttering when he laid eyes on her in her dress and makeup, the intense reaction making Tenten's ears burn as well. Wow. Naruto's first non-stuttered words since said stuttering started was enough to make Tenten hide her red face in her hands. Come on, and you too. The amused Inazaka matriarch spoke up from behind Naruto, or else the little heartbreaker will never stop. Tenten let out a little groan at that, Naruto making a similar noise of misery as her dad and his kind of mom teased them mercilessly. See, come in. Naruto gestured as she and her dad entered the house, hearing the sound of several people talking in the kitchen. Following Naruto, Tenten entered that room to see that the Ichiraku ramen owner and his daughter were present too. Noting that Naruto was starting to tremble from nerves, Tenten silently slipped her hand into his, giving it a reassuring squeeze as he gave her a grateful look. As she and Naruto took a seat at the table, Tenten took a moment to observe everyone else at it. Her dad, Sarutobi, and the owner of Ichiraku ramen all looked calm and assured, like they were fully aware of what was going on and had even expected it. Sasuke and the ramen owner's daughter looked as confused and lost as she did. Kiba, his sister Hana, and Naruto's new teammate Haku were watching everyone with narrowed wary eyes, clearly worried about how this talk was going to go. And the Inazaka parents were sending her and Naruto amused teasing grins as Tenten realized she was still holding his hand. She admittedly still didn't want to let it go either. Thanks for coming everyone. The blonde archer shifted nervously as he continued to clutch her hand like a lifeline. I have something important I need to tell you all, although most of you already know the first one. At the mention of first one, Tenten saw her dad frown in confusion, apparently having no idea that there even was a second secret. I guess it's best to start with the one that most of you already know. Naruto nervously stood up and raised his shirt. Any inappropriate thoughts Tenten might have felt at seeing such a thing, as well as the abs that accompanied it, were cut off by the insanely complex seal on Naruto's stomach. A seal? The ramen girl frowned in confusion, likely not knowing anything beyond that it was a seal. I've never even seen a seal this complex. Tenten gaped as she resisted the urge to lean in and inspect it. What's it do? Regulate chakra? Boost chakra control? It's a storage seal. Naruto's tone was far more ominous than the words he spoke. I'm a container for the Kyuubi. I was born on the day of the attack and a biju can only be contained in a living vessel. The fourth Hokage sealed the nine-tailed fox within me that night. That's why those fucking imbeciles treat you like that. Sasuke seethed, his breath becoming raspy as she saw the Uchiha growing furious. Eyes bleeding red and Sharingan spinning. Because they're too fucking inbred to know how a damn storage seal works. If it's supposed to be a secret, then why do so many people in the village know? Tenten frowned in confusion even as she took Naruto's hand again to make it clear she wasn't going to leave him. I can answer that. Sarutobi sighed. Originally just the council, or parts of at the very least, were aware. Then, when the kid was 3 or so, someone leaked it to the rest of the village. Said that Naruto was the Kyuubi itself and the majority of the village latched onto it. They were desperate for someone to blame for all the suffering and loss to the point they were more than happy to ignore their Hokage telling them otherwise and demand the execution of a toddler. It got to the point that a law was passed forbidding speaking about the issue. Nobody who hadn't already known was allowed to be told unless the one telling was Naruto himself, or the current Hokage. Breaking this law is punishable by death. NBU are actually permitted to grab someone they find breaking the law and take them straight to the torture and interrogation division. If they confirm the violation, then it's execution immediately without trial. Tenten grimaced at that little revelation, rubbing her throat nervously. The second secret has a similar penalty. Naruto grimaced as everyone outside of those living here got confused. I wasn't even aware of a second secret. Sarutobi frowned, leaning in curious. It's who my parents were. Naruto grimaced as Tenten squeezed his hand tighter. The old man said you were an orphan that the fourth grabbed from the hospital that night. That your dad died in a mission before you were born. And your mom died in childbirth. He lied. Naruto's tone was clipped as Tenten remembered that Naruto hadn't been as close with the Hokage since the old man had revealed a secret to the blonde. My mother was Kushina Uzumaki, the second container of the Kyuubi. My father was Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. You could hear a pin drop in the room as everyone processed the bombshell Naruto had just dropped on them. Fucking damn it, I need my eyes checked. The ramen stand owner was the first to break the silence as the man slapped a palm to his face. Your parents came to my family restaurant so often it's shameful that I never noticed it before. Tenten's father's expression wasn't that far off. Be glad that one was kept secret. Sasuke's voice was ominous, expression deadly serious as he shuddered, or else the fangirls would have never left you alone. Tenten would swear to the day she died that she did not hiss like an angry cat at the thought of fangirls pawing at Naruto. No matter what anyone else said to the contrary. The time has come. Sarutobi steepled his fingers as the various Jonin senseis filled the Hokage office. The Chunin exams will soon begin, and so it is to decide which teams are going to be entered. Sims 2 students are already entered, but does anyone else wish to enter their teams? Hokage-sama, you can't be serious. Guy frowned as he straightened up. Sim's team are far too green for the Chunin exams. And she doesn't even have a full team. Watch it, Guy. Sim narrowed her eyes, claws extending out. My boys are more than ready. Regardless, their entrance was ordered by the daimyo himself. Sarutobi ran a tired hand down his face. After their mission in Wave, young Naruto got entered into the bingo book. The daimyo wishes to capitalize on this attention. So Sim's pupils are being entered into the competition. Well, my team are being entered. Guy gave his trademark grin. They met the threshold I expected of them before being entered months ago. Meaning before the drama and his team had started. Team 10 are nominated. Asuma considered for a moment before speaking up. Sasuke and Sai are more than ready. Shikamaru has the intellect to be able to make it through, and it'll give him the kick in the ass needed to work harder on his physical training without having to be forced. Team 8 is more than ready. Kurenai's smirk was confident, bordering on cocky. They'll become Chunin no problem. Glad you're confident, but Team 7 is far from ready. Enko spoke up with an irritated huff. They're still being put through the boot camp ringer. If it's alright with the Hokage though, I'd like them to be allowed to observe the first and second tests. To see the level they should have been trying to reach. The 3 still have issues with working hard. Accepted. Sarutobi nodded, the old man looking exhausted as he wrote the permission. Should anyone else have teams they wish to observe rather than compete, then come to me. And with that, the rest of the Jonin with active teams declared whether they'd have their students attempt for promotion or just observe as the Hokage filled out the necessary forms. At his side she saw the Chunin Irika trying hard not to scowl, eyes flitting to the forms for the rookie nominations. Judging by him keeping silent, she figured the Hokage already spoke to him in private about the possibility. Regardless, she still had training to do with her brats. She didn't just want them to win, she wanted them to dominate. Haku, hello again, Zabuza-sama. Haku spoke softly as he knelt before his master's grave, carefully lighting incense. The Chunin exams will be starting soon. Naruto and I are being entered. Feels almost unfair to the others. Haku couldn't help but chuckle, thinking about how Zabuza would react if he were here. The man had always found the concept of the exams both brilliant and stupid. The incentive to simulate war to avoid true war was a desire he had respected. But it was also pointless if even one person in power wanted a war badly enough, as well as how the exams often allowed the enemy villages to get information about the up-and-comers of each village. Didn't stop Zabuza from betting on each exam he could though. The Inazaka clan have been good to me. Haku held his arm, feeling one of the scars his birth father had given him when the man found out about Haku's bloodline. Ashitaka Inazaka had seen the scars and had begun fretting over him, the man treating Haku and Naruto both as if they were his own children. I'm going to do everything I can in this exam, Zabuza-sama. Haku swore as he placed some of Zabuza's favorite sake by his grave. I'm going to show the mist what you taught me. How they were fools to not follow you when they had the chance. And with Naruto by his side, he could do it. I know you're up there, Zabuza-sama. Haku's hand rested on the pommel of the blades Naruto had enhanced with seals for him. Just watch me, Naruto. Giving a yell, Naruto hurled the Kubikuri Hocho at the target, the massive sword spinning as a blurred wheel of death before hitting the wood. Not bad. Tenten nodded as she approached from behind, the two training in the lot behind her home, but you're moving your wrist wrong. He felt his ears and cheeks burn red as Tenten got behind him to guide his arms and wrist in the proper movement. Alright. Naruto gulped, trying to focus on their training and now how nice Tenten felt pressed against his back. Still, you've been picking up that trick fast. Tenten commented as he held his hand out, summoning the massive blade back to his palm. Zabuza entrusted his sword to me. Naruto's voice was soft as he stared at the massive sword he'd inherited. I don't want to let him down. Naruto, you're already titled in the bingo book. I think you're fine. Tenten scoffed playfully, giving him a light punch on his arm. I'm more worried about making sure I get through the exams. My group's coordination is shot, so I just hope we can get through the team portion of the exams fast enough to show off individual skills. Even as she spoke, Naruto noted a frown on her face. Is something wrong, Ten? He sealed away Kubikiri even as he spoke. Just disappointed. Tenten admitted, sitting with a sigh by some of the boxes of materials she and her dad used to make their merchandise. I'm about to head into the Chunin exams, but I still don't have anything that's mine, you know. Miji has his dojutsu and clan fighting style. Guy personally taught Lee his family's prized taijutsu forms and techniques. Yet more proof of the bastard kid thing in Naruto's mind, but he kept quiet. But apart from a few sword techniques I've been practicing, I don't have anything distinct. He could see it was pissing her off and he wanted to help. But how? Noting movement out of the corner of his eye, Naruto saw Tenten spinning a thick pit of chakra parchment between her fingers. Normally the paper was thin as regular paper, but Tenten had told him sometimes the batches come out raw and are much thicker. They use them for explosive seals that can be attached to walls. But they didn't really sell all that well. Hey Ten, toss me that, would ya? He was starting to get an idea that might fix her problem. This thing? Sure. His bun-haired friend tossed the chakra paper like a throwing card, the lazy ease confirming his idea just might work. Ten, I think I know the solution to your issue. He'd have to train to use them the way that was needed, and he had his own fighting style. This idea already meshed with her own. Giving her the card back, he whispered his idea into her ear as her eyes widened at the implications. Naruto, that's... Tenten was gaping before squealing happily at the idea, her eyes sparkling eagerly. Glad to know his mad genius that let him do pranks could help his friend. His smug thoughts got cut off as Tenten happily pulled him into a hug, her lips enthusiastically crashing against his before either of them even realized what they were doing. Tenten's backyard was dead silent as they both realized the position they were in, her soft lips pressed against his with her arms wrapped around him, his own hands on her hips as she was pressed flush against him. Then he noticed her dad standing in the doorway, eye twitching. Konohamaru, gritting his teeth. Konohamaru did his best to not look weak as the foreign shinobi held him up in the air, fists reared back to punch. Come on Kankuro, let's just go already. A blonde girl groaned, sounding more bored than concerned about his captor smashing Konohamaru's face in. Not just yet, Tamari. The thug holding him up sneered. This little twerp ran into me and didn't even apologize. I think I'll teach him some manners first. Let's see how long before you skew dash. The threat and impending punch were cut off when a spear slammed into the dirt, missing Konohamaru completely but dangerously close to impaling his captor's foot. Drop the kid, or the next one wrecks your little doll in those bandages. A familiar feral voice snarled out as Konohamaru turned with relief, his friends cheering too. In the tree overlooking the alley he could see big bro Naruto along with Kiba Inazaka and Naruto's new teammate Hakiyuki. All three were decked out in their new gear and looked pissed. Kiba, the one who'd spoken, held out his hand as the spear flew back into his palm. The Inazaka air was growling, claws extended and long combat trench coat billowing from the sheer pressure of his chakra. Haku was in ominous black armor, his three blades placed on his hip and back while smaller knives lined a bandolier. The half mask on his face was ominous but nowhere close to how cold the Hayatan user's eyes were. Then there was big bro Naruto. His new dark red armor stood out, along with the katana at his waist and the massive Zanbato sword resting on his shoulder. He could tell all three were pouring out what his grandpa had called killing intent, but he wasn't feeling any of it, the rage being directed at the two who'd been about to hurt him. Why, you'd better watch yourself. The thug, Kankuro, did his best to glare back, able to work through the killing intent surprisingly well. We're the children of the Kazekage. Attacking us is a diplomatic incident. So back oh dash. His threat was cut off as before he could even finish that word, big bro Naruto shot from the tree. He didn't even have time to process before finding himself safely set on the ground with his friends, while his big bro held Kankuro up against the wall by his throat. Oh really? Naruto narrowed his eyes, unconcerned that his back was turned to the girl. How interesting. I don't think that's a big concern though, not since you were about to assault the grandson of the Hokage. What do you think, Sasuke? Sounds like quite the pickle, yeah? A new voice spoke up from behind the blonde as Konohamaru noted that another of his bro's friends, Sasuke Uchiha, was there, his twin swords at the blonde girl's throat. So, is your third teammate gonna step out here or what? Kiba scoffed. The Inazaka's still up in the tree. No point in him hiding when I can smell all the blood on him from far off. At that question, Konohamaru could see Kankuro and Temari both suddenly look terrified, their fear only growing when a redhead appeared in a swirl of sand. You two are annoying. The redhead, who Konohamaru noted had the kanji for love tattooed on his forehead, scowled at the other foreign shinobi. I'm sorry for them bothering you. You'd best keep a closer eye on them from now on. Naruto scoffed, throwing Kankuro to the ground at the newcomer's feet. If you're here for the Chunin exams like I think, then attacking the son of the Kage isn't just going to get you disqualified. It's a straight ticket to Tianai. Assuming that the ANBU didn't just kill you first to send a message. Fair enough. The new redhead seemed to grow excited at the still leaking out killing intent and the threat of death. I look forward to facing you in the exams. Demon of the burning leaves. Butcher of wave. Gaara of the sand. Naruto narrowed his eyes. I've heard of you as well. Assuming I'm not too busy having to deal with would-be assassins from Mist, then you'll get your fight. I'll make sure of it. The now named Gaara's expressionless mask was slipping, Konohamaru shuddering at the unhinged battle lust-filled expression on the redhead's face. The redhead's teammates far too scared to speak up. You're strong. All of you are strong. You'll help me prove my existence, then may the best man win. Naruto kept his cool as the trio walked off, only looking away when he was sure they were gone. You alright, Ko? Instantly, the hardened shinobi was gone, and Naruto was his caring big bro again. Sorry I haven't been around as much for a while. I've been working through some things. Teach me some new jutsu, and it's fine. Konohamaru tried to keep his voice steady, still shaken up from the attack and fighting down emotion now that his bro was hanging out with him again. You've got it. Naruto chuckled, reaching down to ruffle his hair. I have been thinking on a lot of things lately. But I shouldn't have avoided you just because I was having a fight with your gramps. You and grandpa were fighting? Konohamaru blinked in surprise, having not known that was why he hadn't been able to spend as much time with Naruto lately. It's a long story. Naruto chuckled, ruffling his hair even more as Konohamaru tried, and failed, to sweat his hand away. How about you tell your grandpa to show up for dinner at the Inazaka's tonight, and I can tell you both all about what's been going on. Count on it, Naruto. So, talking to the old man again? Sasuke asked. The four of them continued on their way, seeing the 3 academy students off first. Yeah. I think I've tried avoiding the issue long enough. Naruto sighed. Just running away from my problems isn't going to help anything, and if he says anything stupid your girlfriend can just beat him up for you. Kiba smirked teasingly as Naruto felt his face go red. Come on, Kiba. At least Naruto has a girlfriend. Haku shot back as Kiba sulked. The Inazaka are still having not managed to get his feelings through to Hinata. You guys suck. Naruto grumbled even as his friends snickered. Still, the exams start tomorrow. Sasuke sighed. Honestly, I'm somewhat worried. Sai is strong, so I don't have to worry about him on that front, but well, to be honest, he's still a moron. Asuma hasn't managed to hammer some thoughts into his skull yet. Naruto raised an eyebrow as Sasuke shook his head glumly. Shikamaru is the opposite. He's brilliant tactically but still dead weight in a fight. Still better than the Fandral Queens. Kiba barked out a laugh. I heard their sensei refused to even let them try the exams. They're still so far behind. Yes, I've heard that rumor as well. Haku made a face, having run into Ino and Sakura, who both accused him of trying to look pretty to seduce them away from Sasuke-kun. Naruto hadn't stopped laughing for days after that incident. ANBU up ahead. Naruto noted the mostly hidden Jonin, having gotten used to spotting them from all his time pranking as a kid. The others noted the shinobi after he pointed them out. If I had to guess, we've got a team from Mist, Stone, or Cloud up there. Those were the big 3 for trouble around these parts. Geez. Sasuke ran a tired hand down his face. So, any Mist teams try causing trouble for you yet? Sasuke asked even as Naruto steered them into a nearby dango shop. Been avoiding them all day. Naruto shook his head. Spotting their ANBU tails helps with that. But we've got teams from the Bloody Mist and the Mist Rebellion here at the exams. Heard it from some sensei. Seriously? Kiba gaped. Why the hell would they both be let in? That sounds like it's asking for chaos. My guess is that the Hokage wanted them to focus on each other rather than myself or Naruto. Haki gave his theory. The 2 groups might hate each other more than they want to reclaim or eliminate my bloodline. Or to try and take the Kubikuri Hocho away from Naruto. That said, if one of the sides gets eliminated from the exams, then it'll be open season. Best be ready lest you get caught in the crossfire. I'm not worried. Sasuke smirked, Sharingan bleeding read is the multiple tomo in each. I spun smugly. I doubt there's going to be anyone in these exams even as remotely dangerous as Sabliza, let alone the four of us. Ahem. Naruto gave Sasuke a look as the Uchiha heir groaned. Yeah, fine. Four of us plus Naruto's girlfriend. Seriously, she has you whipped. Maybe he's into that. Kiba smirked as Naruto felt his cheeks turn crimson again, the others laughing at his torment too. Assholes, all of you. Naruto's head thunked on the table while Haku went to go order some dango for the lot of them. Yet you put up with us anyway. Sasuke smirked. His dark-haired friend had been growing happier in equal speed to his strength, as of late. Honestly, it was a lot better than the stick-up-the-ass attitude he'd had when they first met. Yeah? Naruto grumbled, taking his skewered of dango when Haku returned with the snacks still. Here's to kicking ass and getting ranks. Cheers, Sarutobi. Taking a deep pull from his pipe, Hiruzen looked out over the village of Konoha. He could spot the occasional flicker of ANBU moving about, keeping an eye on the guests in attendance for the exam set to start the next day. This is going to be nothing but a giant headache. Hiruzen sighed in exhaustion. Along with teams from both Mist factions, there was groups from the other members of the 5 major villages as well as several minor villages such as Grass and Rain. Even a new village, Sound, had entered a team. Overall, this was the most populated Chunin exam in the last decade. Possibly the last 2. Gramps? Hearing his door slam open from Konohamaru letting himself in, again, Hiruzen let out a small smile. His grandson, no matter how precocious, always did put a smile on his face. Hello, Konohamaru. He turned to the boy to see him smiling wider than he had since Naruto was told the truth. I ran into big bro Naruto earlier. Konohamaru's wide smile turned into an annoyed pout for a moment. He said the reason he hasn't been around for so long was because you two were fighting. Hiruzen gulped, not wanting to upset his grandson, but needn't have bothered as Konohamaru just kept on going. But he said he wants us to go to the Inazakas for dinner tonight. Both of us. Konohamaru's wide smile warmed his heart, as did the news. Then it sounds like we'd best get ready, doesn't it? He grinned at his grandson who cheered and rushed off home to do so. You're giving me another chance, Naruto. Hiruzen tapped out his pipe, eyes resolute. You won't regret it. Naruto, you ready, partner? Naruto took a steadying breath as he stood outside the academy with Haku, the first exam set to happen on the 3rd floor. Of course, my friend. The Hayatan user nodded, the two of them having prepared as best they could for the tests. He'd have brought the others in on their planning too, but the group had all agreed that training together or making suggestions for ways to improve was the furthest it should go. If one of them only passed because a friend from another team gave them the answers, then they weren't really ready to be Chunin. Nodding, they walked in, hearing a commotion once inside. The hell? He muttered quietly as they got to the 2nd floor, noting several applicant teams trying, and failing, to get let into a room that was labeled 3B, the room the exam was supposed to be on. Just on the wrong floor. Come on, this is probably just a test to weed out the hopeless cases. Haku shook his head in exasperation. Let's keep going. Right. Naruto didn't even argue as they continued up to the 3rd floor, making sure not to draw attention of those too dumb to count how many flights of stairs they'd climbed. Getting into the testing room, Naruto glanced around to take in those who were there. He saw Sasuke and Kiba alongside their teams, his friends giving him a nod of greeting. Tenten stood out to him and sent him a little wink that he couldn't help but grin back at even as he felt his ears turn red. Sadly, not everyone in the area was a positive experience. Naruto and Haku were on everyone's eyes, the teams already there having been watching the door to size up anyone who entered and hit them with killing intent. Admittedly rather pathetic given what he had housed within him. Speaking of, Naruto went from his friendly expression he showed his friends to what one drunken Chunin, that had rapidly gotten a black eye from Tsum, had dubbed his butcher's face. Along with the hard expression, Naruto showed the benefits of training with Tsum-sensei and released the killing intent of the Kyuubi, targeting everyone who didn't have a Konoha headband in the room. Anko, spitting out her sake. Anko tried not to choke as she felt the sheer bloodlust and the killing intent that kid was leaking out. Aimed at her or not, she could still feel it by focusing and, much to her now regret, she had been to laugh at how weak the Genin's killing intent was so far. Sweet Kamitsum, the hell are you teaching that kid? Anko gaped at the smug feral woman, the other Jonin just as shaken as she was while the Genin being allowed to observe just looked confused, jealous. Sim smirked as the blonde brat seemingly cut his killing intent given the other Genin stopped looking like they were struggling to breathe. Seriously, that felt like. Anko subtly held up 9 fingers as she whispered her question to Sim, making sure the Genin couldn't hear her or see her hands. That's because I taught him how to access its killing intent. Sim nodded. You're well aware of how bestial my clan can be? We have our own feral states and savage moments. I helped train him to overcome any bloodlust or feral state that the fox could put him in. The chakra is still something we're training in, but just tapping into the killing intent was much easier. You can see the results. Yeah. Anko shook her head before sending Sim a hopeful look. Any chance you'd be willing to try? No. Sim didn't even pause to consider it. Not that she could really blame her. Alright, any bets on who's gonna crack first? Asuma chuckled, pulling out some glasses and a bottle of sake, The old man ain't pulling any punches this year with who he has overseeing this first test. It's someone named Ibiki, right? Kurenai frowned, the genjutsu mistress having always not paid much attention to others who weren't immediately relevant to her own life. Yep, Konoha's #1 at torture. Asuma smirked. No offense, Anko. None taken. She shrugged as she took a sake cup from her fellow sensei. The old man's a master of that shit. If torture got rated like combat skill, she was positive the old asshole'd have an S rank if not a multiple S. T-torture? Sakura squeaked, eyes terrified. Mental torture. Ino gulped. The girl knowing full well who Ibiki was thanks to her father. He's the head of the torture and interrogation division. Dad also said there's almost nobody as patriotic about Konoha as Ibiki. He also said Ibiki would have made a good Kage if he didn't hate politics so much. Anko couldn't help the laughter that escaped her at that, nearly falling out of her chair. And now I can't help but picture him in that uniform. Anko wheezed. The position of Kage was a respectable one, but the robes and hag uniform was so dumb. As she worked to recover her breath, Ibiki showed up in the test room that they were viewing remotely, explaining the test to those assembled. Ha! Sakura smirked. That useless idiot Naruto's gonna fail then. Any further insults from the girl who was too stubborn to accept that people change were cut off by Sum's killing intent hitting the pinkette. Looks like Pinky here would have failed then. Asuma sighed as he slammed back his sake, pouring a refill a moment later. I had the best grades in my class. Sakura protested only once Sum had lifted the killing intent. It ain't about brains, runt. Sum scoffed. Those questions are ones that no genin would be expected to know. Hell, most genin wouldn't know em either. They're closer to jonin level questions. Then why? Ino blinked in confusion at what, to her, must have sounded like an impossible-to-win situation. It's intel gathering. Anko pointed out a couple of the test takers. Those guys there? They're actually plants. They're chunin who already know the correct answers. Ibiki said that if you get caught cheating 5 times you're disqualified and kicked out. If it was a regular test then any cheating would get you booted. No, this test is to see if you can collect intel and not get caught. The moderators are observing the applicants, and they'll even cut some slack if they spot something that's still chunin level. A lot of those guys are jonin after all. Honestly, Naruto has the best chance of passing a test like this. Asuma shrugged. Not to shit on my student or yours. He nodded to Kurenai and Guy, but their dojutsu are, well, they're kind of obvious, so they'd have to be careful about using them, or use them only once to get all the answers in one go, and only have one demerit. But Naruto doesn't have anything as amazing as the Sharingan. Sakura protested. Kid, are you blind? Asuma gaped at Anko's dense student. You saw the pranks he did back at the academy. What do silly pranks have to do with anything? Sakura gave a clueless blink as the Konoha jonin in the room all face-palmed loudly. Alright, Squirt, let me put it this way. Remember that time the kid painted the Hokage monument? Anko broke it down slowly for the pinkette. Yeah, the dumb loser got caught and had to scrub it all off by hand. Sakura nodded, gulping when Sum growled at the descriptor. Kid, he painted that in broad daylight without getting caught till he started shouting to get people to look up and see what he did. He then ran the AMBU ragged as they tried to chase him down. Sum bragged about her student's ability. Think about if he'd used something like explosive seals rather than paint, and hadn't bothered to announce what he did. He'd have destroyed a monument of the village, damaging morale, and buried a great deal of Konoha under rock. My boy is a master at stealth when he wants to be. Stealth, cleverness, and creativity are crucial to intel gathering. He's just taking the test. Anko blinked before she started to get a thought of just what he might have done. The Hokage's going to have to rethink future exams if he did what I think he did. Naruto, keeping his smirk to himself. Naruto filled out each answer with ease, relishing the confusion of the proctors who hadn't seen him even attempt to cheat. The nature of the test was obvious to those who paid attention, especially as the chunin exams always had to test for the qualities needed to be a chunin: survival, teamwork, combat, intel gathering, and more. Having the Hokage and Konohamaru visiting for dinner meant the Hokage office wasn't occupied, most of the guards who protected it only doing so when the Hokage himself was there. Naruto was able to sneak past ANBU before he even graduated, and Sum had only helped him improve more. A single shadow clone was easily able to sneak past the ANBU guarding it, find a copy of the exam test, and dispel after reading the questions. He and Haku had then make sure to study up on what the answers would be, along with a couple other methods to spy and communicate. He'd carefully made storage seals on the palms of their armor, designed to not release any puffs of smoke when used. The seals currently held a pair of pencils that could be easily linked so what one wrote, the other would do the same movements. They'd known the first test would be at the academy for weeks, the location all but guaranteeing a written test. Added to that, he had a seal inside his armor holding one of his shadow clones already hinged into a fly, and he felt secure in their ability to pass this test. Like Ibiki implied, it was only cheating if they got caught. Naruto, alright, pencils down. The proctor for the exam, Ibiki, clapped his hands with an echoing boom. Yes, that means you in the back. I see you still scribbling. Naruto quieted a snort at that, tucking away his pencil he'd been using to scribble ideas in a notebook for his latest persona, an admittedly spiteful project. Alright everyone. Ibiki had a wicked smirk on his face that was scaring several of the test takers. You've had plenty of time to answer questions 1 through 9. But now, we get to question 10. The man's sadistic grin would have made Naruto feel terrified if he hadn't already known the questions and had to deal with worse growing up. Now I'm sure a lot of you are wondering what makes question 10 so special, thinking I'm just being dramatic or stupid. Ibiki smirked at some of the guilty winces and not guilty sneers from the foreign genin. Yeah, and what of it, tree fucker? A cocky IWA genin sneered before gulping as Naruto pouring out his QB killing intent at the scrub, Ibiki noticing and seeming amused. You should care, because this question has its own special rules. Ibiki walked over to the blackboard, sliding one section down to reveal a written rule on the now revealed board. Rule 1. Question 10 is optional. If you choose not to attempt to answer the question, then you will automatically fail as will your entire team. Then why the hell wouldn't we try the question? A Miss Genin scoffed derisively. Why indeed? Ibiki smirked as he lowered blackboard number 2. Rule 2. If you fail question 10, then you failed the entire exam regardless of answers to the first 9 questions. There was an instant uproar for most of those assembled, outraged at what they probably felt was being cheated out of the passing grade they'd earned. Oh, if that makes you upset, then you're going to really hate this. Ibiki's sadistic smirk grew wider as he slid down a third blackboard. Rule 3. If you choose to attempt question 10 and fail, then you are never allowed to retake the Chunin exams in the future. The silence in the room would have been imposing if Naruto wasn't so focused on not laughing. That was the most overblown scare tactic he'd ever seen and was honestly rather insulted that so many were falling for it. One by one, more and more teams were caving, refusing to try and answer the question. The team members who hadn't cracked almost universally glaring angrily at their weak link. The exam had started with a massive group. Dozens upon dozens of teams from all over the elemental nations. Every major village and many of the minor ones having sent several hopefuls. Now maybe 20 teams at most were left. To those who remained, congratulations. Ibiki smirked as those who hadn't figured it out, and were more balls than brain gaped in confusion. Wait, what? The puppet user who tried punching Konohamaru before was, unsurprisingly, one such idiot. You mean you didn't figure it out? Naruto snorted. The last question was if you'd be willing to risk it all. To throw your own dreams and future out of the way for the sake of the mission if need be. If you can't even have the courage to take a question, you aren't ready to be a Chunin. Oh ho, you're a cocky little runt. Ibiki smirked. You didn't even seem nervous as I read the rules. The last one was rather playing your hand. Naruto shrugged with a smirk. I mean, come on, no foreign Kage would accept a rule like that. Especially if the village already wasn't fond of Konoha. Those from places like IWA and Kumo who hadn't figured that out suddenly look angrily embarrassed. Ha! Ibiki barked out a laugh. Most of you runts are typically too terrified of the consequences to think of something like that. As he spoke, Ibiki worked to undo the knot holding his headband together, removing the cloth to show horribly scarred and mutilated skin. More than one weak stomach Genin threw up violently at the sight. Consequences are a fact of life in this line of work, kids. Ibiki's tone had gone from teasing to serious and somber. Missions can go wrong. Information can be extracted cruelly. Deaths, yours or those you care for, can be just another fact of life. You have to be prepared to face those consequences, to be able to shoulder that burden, live with the pain lest the pain control you. Ibiki didn't bother putting his headband back on, leaving the scars clearly visible to emphasize his points. A ninja must walk hand in hand with death on every missions. But those who failed to take that seriously risked that hand in hand becoming a knife in the back. Nobody, not even the cocky little shits, dared to comment and break the oppressive silence. Glad to see you're taking my words seriously. Ibiki nodded pleased as he put his bandana back on. That being said, your second exam is next and the proctor will soon be here. Less than half of you will even be making it to the third test. Well, that was just cheery. The uncomfortable silence continued without any sign of the second proctor showing up. Ibiki sent someone out to find them, while the oppressive silence became awkward silence. And then bored chatting. Eventually Ibiki decided if they had to wait for the proctor they could at least be doing something practical, namely going over how everyone cheated on the exam, and how they could have improved. If the man wasn't so intolerant of stupidity, he'd have made an excellent academy instructor. I simply used my Bukugan. Niji smirked smugly when his team was asked how they collected their answers. It was fate that I attained the answers so easily. Naruto made a mock gagging expression at the arrogance as Kiba and Haku snickered. I used wires manipulated by my chakra. Tenten pointed to the ceiling where a mirror-like plate was attached. Naruto vaguely remembered lessons where the mirrors were used to reflect light to simulate a search beam to practice stealth jutsu. Let me see the answers on other papers and then turn the mirror so Lee could see what I wrote. Naruto nodded. Even if Tenten was growing disenfranchised with the situation with Lee, she did point out to him that it was more Guy's fault than Lee's. Honestly, she was starting to avoid him more because he doesn't have an indoor voice at this point. Ibiki nodded. Best advice for you all would be for Lee to find his own way to gather intel. Tenten, see about learning chakra strings. Niji, see about getting a mask to hide your eyes when you use them. Alright, you two next. Ibiki turned to Naruto and Haku. We got our hands on the answers a couple days ago. Naruto shrugged blasé as the room went dead silent. What? Ibiki deadpanned. The Chunin exams have always been about testing the things a Chunin has to be able to do, including intel gathering. Naruto shrugged. Given that the first test was being held at the academy, there wasn't much else this first test could be. So, I managed to get my hands on the questions and look up answers with my teammates. It's still the purpose of the test. I just got proactive. As he spoke, he could swear Emotsum sensei was cackling somewhere. Fucking damn it all. Ibiki face palmed before the door to the classroom opened and a masked Ambu stepped in. Greetings, I am Tenzo. The masked Anbu nodded. The original overseer for the second exam is presently indisposed. I shall be taking his place. The man handed Ibiki a missive with the Hokage's seal as proof, the first proctor reading it with a nod. Very well. Runts, follow him and listen to what he says. My last order for you all? The scarred man smirked. Try not to die. Sarutobi. Yo, old man, you wanted to see me? Kakashi lazily strolled into the office, head still buried in his orange book. Given his lackadaisical attitude and current focus, he was unprepared for the seal that Nico slapped onto the man's back. You were warned, Kakashi. Sarutobi scowled down at the man who neglected his duty as proctor for the second exam. I'd hoped you would have been able to overcome this on your own. But it seems that I asked too much of you. What the? Kakashi struggled in the grip of the two Ambu pinning him down, the seal on the cycloptic jonin preventing him from using any chakra. As of this moment, Kakashi, you are being removed from duty. Until such a time as you are deemed fit and mentally capable, then it shall remain that way. Nico, take him to where we discussed. Right away, Hokage-sama. The Ambu nodded before vanishing with Kakashi via Shunshin. I really hope you're able to overcome this, Kakashi. Sarutobi sighed, feeling drained as he slumped into his chair. I really do. For now, he supposed he should go check on how the first exam went.